Absolutely. Or you all can say what? Yes, peace and blessings. I say peace and blessings because it's important to me, because I know the power of words, and what you send out into the universe is what you get back. And while we do want everyone to have a good morning, I also want you to have peace, and I want you to have blessings. And I want you to internalize that so that as you move through your world and through your day, that your presence brings peace and blessings to those whom you encounter. My name is Dr. Georgine Best Montgomery, and it gives me great pleasure to welcome you all as the interim department chair of English and Modern Languages. And I wanted to take a moment to thank Ms. Alma Hill, without whom much of today would not be possible. And I just wanted to say thank you. I'm so pleased and excited about our guests here today. And at this moment, I'm going to bring Ms. Alma Hill up for introductions. And I ask that you all enjoy this presentation, and please align your schedule with the rest of today's events so that you can attend them, because we really do have lots of wonderful things planned for you. Ms. Alma Hill.
So, good morning, everyone. How are you doing today? Good? You ready for a good program? All right. Well, so we have Angela Tuck. I have the pleasure of working with both Angela and Charles Jones when I was a news reporter at the Atlanta Journal-Constitution. Angela has been many things at the AJC. In addition to being an award-winning writer, she was also an editor, a columnist, and a recruiter at one point. She would go to HBCUs and other universities to recruit talent like you. She's worked at the Detroit Free Press, the Tampa Bay Times, and at the Herald Leader in Lexington, Kentucky. And she and Charles are co-authors of Somewhere Listening for My Name, 1960s activists tell their stories. And they basically did a lot of interviewing and reporting of activists like John Lewis, who, when they were your age, really started the civil rights movement. So Angela, part of her expertise is writing extensively about the 1961 freedom fighters. She profiled the family of Denise McNair, one of the 4 girls killed in the 1963 bombing at the 16th Street Baptist Church in Birmingham, and she covered the 50th anniversary of the March on Washington. I'll let her tell you more about her background in her presentation. And then I'd like to also introduce Mr. Charles Jones. Charles is a Clark Atlanta alumni, so we have to give him a hand for that.
Yes, sir.
Not only is he an alumni, he was the first Clark Atlanta alum to graduate with a concentration in computer art and design. He took an internship at the AJC, and that internship led him to bigger and better things. He has had more than 20 years of award-winning experience working in print and digital media. He has worked for a number of organizations, including the Washington Post, the Baltimore Sun, and the Cincinnati Enquirer, before he went on to the Atlanta Journal-Constitution. And he also helps small business in his new career. He helps small business and large corporations increase their brand recognition and engagement by designing creative solutions to help brand their businesses. So, I'll let Charles tell you more about his experience and how he and Angela came together to write Somewhere Listening for My Name. So, let's give him a hand.
Door prizes, all right. Thanks for hearing us today. It's great to be here with you guys on this lovely day and a lovely campus. You guys move about on Atlanta Student Movement Boulevard every day. How many of you know much about the Atlanta student movement? Who can tell me a couple of things about the Atlanta student movement? You raised your hand. Anybody can tell me anything about the Atlanta student movement? Y'all drive on the Atlanta Student Movement Boulevard or walk on it, right? Okay. Do you recall a gentleman named Lonnie King who recently passed away? He was in the news because he recently passed away. Anybody remember him? He was one of the leaders of the Atlanta student movement. The Atlanta student movement and the 1961 Freedom Rides and the Nashville student movement really helped to spark a lot of change in our country. And to think that those folks walked the same campus that you guys walked, and we wanted to, in telling this story, we wanted to interview leaders of those movements and capture their stories before they passed on. And since we've written the book, I think 4 of the people now in the book have passed away. So I don't know how many of you all, has anyone here ever interviewed their grandparents or their parents about their lives? Raise your hand if you've done that. I would strongly encourage anybody to do that. It's amazing what you can learn from your elders about their lives. And, you know, it tells you just a lot about the world that they were living in, kind of what motivated them. So what we wanted to do with this book was we wanted to chronicle their lives. We wanted to talk about their childhoods, and they grew up in very different times than Charles and I lived in, and much different times than you guys lived in, because the things that they were doing, you know, about 60 years ago really did change the world. It broke the back of segregation. There are stores that people, I mean, those of us who didn't live through that era can't even imagine going to a store and having somebody say, if you try it on, you have to buy it. Because we don't want, you know, if you're a black person, we don't want, you know, the white people behind you to have to try on what you tried on, so you're gonna have to buy it. So we did not live through that area. We studied it, but these folks lived it, and quite a few of them live in Atlanta. And they've been speaking, they speak to groups all over the country, but we wanted to chronicle a little bit and help students of today understand, you know, what their struggle was. So we selected 13 people for our book. The only one of them that was famous was Congressman John Lewis, who I know everybody knows who John Lewis is, right? Okay. But everybody else was just, you know, ordinary folks, but they really did put their lives on the line to change the world that we live in. And I'll let Charles talk a little bit about his experience, and then we'll talk about how we put everything together.
Good morning. Good morning, guys. Come on now. Look, piggybacking on what Angela was saying, the thing that I was most impressed by in interviewing these people is they're just like me, just like you. They're just regular college students who said, look, we need to make a difference. We can't sit back here and not have our voices heard. And there is this thought that there's a gap between the generations. These people in their 70s and 80s and youth, you know, Black Lives Matter and Atlanta student movement, Nashville student movement, Carolina. Many of the people who we interviewed for this book, they don't see, or they did not, those who we interviewed who are still living, they didn't see a big gap. Their thing was to pass on that knowledge, to pass on their technique. See, Lonnie King in his last few months of his life, I spent a lot of time with him. He lived about 7 minutes away from my house, and had health challenges and all that. So, you know, I spent a lot of just one-on-one time with him. And we didn't really talk about the movement so much. I wanted to talk to him just about being a black man in America. And we watched MSNBC, and it was funny, sometimes sad, the way we both saw the same news story, and these generations apart, we still met somewhere in the middle. The way that they impacted Atlanta was not just by walking down the street with picket signs. It was, they hurt Atlanta economically. They hurt cities across the country economically. Their strategy to getting arrested after 5 p.m. Why? Because now they got to feed you. So now that money that would just be sitting there has to be utilized to feed these people who are raising Cain, in their cities, just demanding that they not be treated like dogs. And they did it with a nonviolent approach. I struggle with that myself. It's possible. Obviously, it's been done. I still can't get my head wrapped around, you know, somebody spitting in your face. Mr. King, in particular, they were marching through Atlanta, and white man threw acid on him, in his face, on his shirt. Police comes and picks him up. Rather than taking him straight to the hospital, took him on a long ride around town. All because he had the audacity to say, "I'm not a dog." That resonated with me. The thing that he would be saying right now if he were here is, there's nothing wrong with the current movement other than strategy. Society listens with, they hear money, they see money. Money impacts them. Money changes the whole conversation. His thing was, you could be 10 deep in a department store, and a white woman could walk in with her child. You've been standing there forever just to get waited on, and walk right up to the front to get service. So what do? You stop shopping there. There were sisters and brothers in the community that could sew, haberdashers, you know, seamstress, stylist. You quit shopping in the store. Most of the sisters, they worked up in Buckhead, cleaning homes. They would typically take mass transit or a cab to work. We're done with mass transit. There are brothers in the community that had cars. They want a little change. They started their own transit service. When they impacted the community's wallet, the community started to listen. That's why they say Atlanta's too busy to hate. Now, we hit your wallet. You had to listen. You had to stop. You had to give us a seat at the table. That's why I feel so passionately about, I had to come here today, not only because you're my people, but because I come back, you know, regularly, but it's usually with the art department. At least once a year, I'm with them, working with portfolios, seniors about to graduate and go out into this world. But I want to make it plain. There's no difference in them. There's no difference in me. There's no difference in you. All of us, each one of you in your own way can do something to make a difference if you decide to. It's within you. You just got to want to do it, feel strongly and passionately about something. Come together, organize, mobilize, strategize, and make a difference. Angela?
How we got into doing this is one of the things that I think we were asked to talk about. And it just happens like kind of organically. I was asked to speak at Georgia State University. There was a movie that had just come out, a documentary about the 1961 Freedom Rides. And 3 of the people on the panel were actual Freedom Riders. And honestly, I didn't know a lot about the Freedom Riders movement. It happened in 1961, for most of 1961. And it wasn't just black students, it was white students, Jewish students. 400 of them came from all around the country, and they kind of converged. They rode, the whole objective was to test the laws that had just been put into place on interstate transportation. So like Greyhound, Trailways buses, they had desegregated those, but people in the Deep South still were making it very difficult for black people. So the riders, they assembled teams, and the riders went through different cities on their way, in the Deep South, on their way to Jackson, Mississippi. And they almost didn't make it. A couple of their buses were firebombed. At the end of the Freedom Rides, the ultimate destination was going to be Florida, but they didn't make it to Florida because the state officials in Mississippi decided that they were going to jail all the Freedom Riders, to scare them. And they kept them in maximum security areas near death row. And they made their lives really uncomfortable. And as Charles said, what they did in their strategy was to fill up the jails in Mississippi, since they were going to put them there, use all their financial resources, and they stayed there for 60 to 90 days, just, kind of to protest the whole bus system. And eventually, after a couple of people almost got killed, thankfully, miraculously, nobody got killed, the Interstate Commerce Commission issued a ruling saying that they couldn't discriminate on buses. They had separate waiting areas for African Americans. They had to sit on the back of the Greyhound and the Trailways buses. It was a very dangerous time. So what I did was started just talking to these gentlemen about their experiences. And one of the things about interviewing people is you generally have to form a relationship. If you want to, especially if you're trying to write a book about someone, you want to try to get them to where they can feel at ease. So there's a certain amount of rapport that you have to build. And we kind of grew from doing multiple interviews with these people, and we tried to start off just by talking to them about their childhoods. Everyone likes to reflect on their childhoods, and then we talked about, the things that made them want to do some of the things that they did during that time. And the more we talked, the more really interesting details we got. And then, since these folks were in their 70s and 80s, we had to kind of do some research to kind of cross-check some of the things that they were telling us about the times, make sure the dates were right, make sure we had correct spellings of different locations that they were talking about. But our book is largely, and this is what our book looks like, it's largely a collection of interviews with folks, and we let them talk in their voices. Now, we had hours and hours of interviews with them. So then when you have hours and hours of interviews with them, you got to distill the information and try to come up with, the most interesting portrait of each person. And for a lot of these folks, they hadn't thought about some of this stuff in a while. And, you know, a lot of times during the interviews, they got very emotional because when they came out of the movement, there weren't any therapists or anything. They were just kind of thrown back in. And a lot of them ended up in the military. And several of them told us that the civil rights movement and their activism back in the 60s helped prepare them for places like Vietnam. One of them decided, after going through everything that he went through in Mississippi, that he was going to not serve in Vietnam. So he went to Canada and went AWOL and was prosecuted by the federal government. So their stories are just fascinating, and they spent a lot of time sharing with us and just allowing Charles to photograph them. And what we came up with was some really profiles in courage, and people that you would just never imagine some of the things that they've been through. I'll read a little bit I'll read some of the excerpts from the book, but I wanted to give Charles an opportunity also to talk about photographing, because a big part of also documenting is photography, and we did some video interviews with these folks too. So we had a lot of interaction with them over probably, I guess, a period of about a year. And some of them I had talked to for longer than that, so we had built up a rapport. So it was a pretty consuming project, and at the end of it, we all felt like we were family, and we are. We're connected, not just by being people of color, but we're connected just being members of society and trying to make the world a better place. And that's what these folks did, and their stories, really, really compelling stories.
Angela came to me with the project she was working on, and asked me if I wanted to be a part of it, and I was like, of course. Started out coming in to photograph and shoot video of people, and my main focus was, as I listened to the stories, these gut-wrenching stories, I'm cliche, but playing on the eyes are doorways to soul. I shot many of the photos, but those that I assigned out, one of the main focuses I put in the photo assignment was warm them up a bit. And I don't want people smiling, because the book is not about smiling, but I don't want people frowning. I don't want people looking angry. I don't want people looking bitter. I want soulful eyes and just a facial expression that says, you put me through all this, I'm still standing, still have my resolve. I'm still a man, I'm still a woman. I'm a human being. I have character. But I wanted that to be conveyed through people's soulful eyes. So that was my focus as far as the video and photo was concerned. One thing that I noticed with a few of the gentlemen in particular, there were times when we would get along, because I'm from Lexington, Kentucky. That's the last city in the United States to burn Barack Obama in effigy. Okay? That's where I'm from. That's where Angela's from. This is my big sister. Not by blood, but she introduced me to journalism. I used to play baseball for her dad and with her little brother. So we went to the same high school and everything. So we have a little history. But the more I talked about Lexington and my dad in particular, he never tried to hide the reality of society from me. He made sure that I guess you could say I don't want to say armed, just that I was aware. He didn't try to hide the truth from me. And the more that I talked about my dad, my mom, she just didn't say much about it. Dad grew up in the city. Mom grew up in the country. Dad had some experiences somewhat similar to some of these people that we wrote about in this book. So the more that I spent time with them, I think the more the brothers in particular kind of opened up. And I think we were able to get stories with more depth, more vibrance, just because, as Angela was saying, you develop a rapport with these people. It's not something you come in and just automatically people start just rattling this stuff off. This is very sensitive stuff. You know, one brother, and I swear this is movie material, Dr. Larry Hunter in Parchment, and Parchment Prison. It's like one of the worst prisons in the world, really. You know, to strip their beds down, take their clothes from them at night, and turn the air on blast. He said, you know, we always joke coming up, oh, it's so cold, my teeth are rattling. It's like my teeth were rattling uncontrollably. It was hard to listen to that. It was hard to look into his eyes and see and feel what he had gone through. But again, research, I don't want to get too caught off, because that bothers me. It just bothers me. It bothers me that man was treated that way, that all these people were treated this way, but he really struggles with that today. It's hard for him to contain that fire and that hurt and that. I mean, he was chased by the FBI because he refused to serve for a country that would do that to a black man. He went to Canada. He said those days in Parchment prepared him for the cold of Canada. You have to research. You have to dig. You have to. We have the book it's about that thick of the FBI records. Having to flip through those just to see how some of these arrests were just, they're just crazy. Being arrested, locked away for days for a little bit of nothing, just for standing there. Surveillance. But we had to go through all of that paperwork, marry it with their words, marry it with outside information. Sometimes the outside information gave us questions to ask them. So in writing a book, much like in writing a story, anything else, your research is going to give you context. It's going to help you provide the context and the foundation to build and add your spirit to it. But you need to be able to set up everything historically, factually. If you're writing fiction, to be able to make a scene that makes kind of sense. I mean, it can be a little off, but just so it's not, the things integrate well together, so the story just flows better. And I think we did a pretty decent job at that with our book. And I'll let you talk about how the thickness and the point size.
Well, we wanted it to be accessible to young people in particular. So we used a larger point size. We also use a larger point size because as I've learned, getting older, it's a little bit easier to see. I mean, I struggle sometimes now with such really small font sizes and thin fonts. So we wanted it to be accessible to older people and younger people. And a lot of times we deliberately made it a small book because we wanted it to be something you could read quickly and digest quickly, because the ultimate goal was just to give you some history from the perspective of the people who actually lived it, fought for and worked really hard to change things on their campuses, in their cities. A lot of these people grew up in situations where their parents were humiliated. I wanted to read a little passage from Dr. Bernard Lafayette. Dr. Lafayette he was one of Dr. King's lieutenants. I'll just read a little bit about him, and I'll tell you, and then read a little excerpt about him and an experience he had with his grandmother. The day before he was assassinated in April 1968, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. told Bernard Lafayette Jr. he wanted to internationalize and institutionalize nonviolence. At the time, Lafayette helped direct Dr. King's Poor People's Campaign. Dr. Lafayette is, at the time of the book was publishing, he was 77, he's 79 now. He still goes and speaks all over the world. He spent more than 50 years carrying out Dr. King's vision of teaching people how to peacefully resolve conflicts, and has trained people all over the globe on the principles of nonviolent direct action. He's been a civil rights activist for more than 50 years. He's an ordained minister, and he holds degrees from American Baptist Theological Seminary and Harvard University. Here's what he said about growing up in Tampa. Anybody here from Florida? Okay, got a few people who probably know a little bit about how it is in Florida. I grew up in Tampa, Florida, Ybor City specifically. It's considered the Latin quarters. It's a good mixture of cultures, though. You have the Cubans, the Italians, you have the Irish, you have the African Americans, and you have the Jews. When I was 7 years old and my grandmother and I were catching a streetcar, or they called it in those days the cable car, they were segregated. And we were required to put our money in the receptacle in the front of the car. Then we had to disembark and walk to the rear and board the bus through the back door. Sometimes when we would put our money in the receptacle, then step down and start walking on the side of the car to the back door, the driver would take off and fold up the steps. Since we were accustomed to that kind of thing happening, as a little boy traveling with my grandmother, I would run ahead and jump on the steps and hold the door open. I was doing this one day and the driver took off. I was trying to hold the door open because the train was moving and my grandmother fell. Her heel got caught in the cracks around the tracks. I was reaching for her and trying to hold the door. I was a little boy, 7 years old, and I was real skinny. There was a moment of truth for me. In fact, I had been told that at the age of 7, there's always something memorable that happens to you. That was my incident. I felt like a sword had cut me in half. I'm reaching for her and reaching for the door. I said to myself, when I grow up, I'm going to do something about this problem. My maternal grandmother's name is Rosella Forrester. She was born in Macon, Georgia. She was the only child, and she was an entrepreneur. She had her own rooming house, which she inherited from her mother. Now, he goes on to tell us that his grandmother founded a church. She started her own business. She had an orange grove. These are the people that inspired him. And he has gone on to teach nonviolence all over the world. And he talked to us about nonviolence and some of the training that they did in a prison in Colombia. And it was really compelling. Nonviolence, it's the goal to stop violence. Those people who believed in an eye for an eye, that wasn't going to bring about any changes. That was just going to add more to the violence. Our goal was to have peaceful reconciliation. Therefore, you had to work on restoring the relationship with forgiveness and some sort of negotiations and an agreement to find something that you could work on together. An example of that concept was when we went to Colombia and trained members of the FARC, the Revolutionary Armed Forces of Colombia, in nonviolence. The inmates in this prison in Bella Vista, Colombia, sent for us because they were killing 6 people a day there, and they wanted to introduce nonviolence. We studied the situation before we went in and put together a strategy. Once we finished the training there, we gave them some practicums, i.e., what are you going to do now that you trained? How are you going to handle some conflicts in your life? It just so happened that one of the prisoners had killed another inmate's brother. People knew it, and they knew it was just a matter of time when one of them had to kill the other. After the training, the one who killed the other's brother went to him and said, "You know, I killed your brother. I'm sorry. I wish that hadn't happened. I can't bring your brother back to life, but I can be your brother." They became cellmates. Imagine now going to sleep at night with the guy who had planned to kill you, but now he's your brother. That happened in 2004, he said. That's just one of the stories that Dr. Lafayette told us. When you're interviewing people, it takes a lot to get to so many, especially someone like Dr. Lafayette, who's had so many life experiences. But I just found it fascinating that he had such a great relationship with his grandmother, and that relationship with his grandmother ended up, sparking that incident that kind of shaped the rest of his life, and the activism that he would do the rest of his life. I know all of us feel close to our parents and our grandparents, and one of the things that was a common denominator for all these folks were just with the humiliation that their grandparents and their parents suffered. And because of their activism, a lot of times their parents were, their jobs were threatened, their homes were threatened. They would tell these students that were activists, "You can't come back home because I don't want people to know you're here." The FBI were watching them and things like that. So there was just so many layers to what they were dealing with. But also so much of it, applied to today. I mean, we talked about gang violence in Chicago and other cities, and Dr. Lafayette had this to say. He said, "You have to give young people some positive direction and something that's also fulfilling. The reason they get into violence and stuff like that is because they don't have the value for life. That's why people feel so bad. They feel their lives are not worthwhile. What we have to do is help them understand that they are worthwhile, and if they can find something worth giving their lives to. Besides helping our young people get the right information, we've got to help them find a place where they can serve the community. When you serve your community, you feel more necessary. During the civil rights movement, we weren't just concerned about ourselves. Martin Luther King said it best: until you find something in your life worth dying for, something you believe in, and something you're going to give your life for, you have not lived." And that was another theme throughout all of this, just how much, not only did they work on the picket lines and whatnot, they served their community. They cleaned up gardens and planted gardens for people. They did all kinds of things to kind of give them value. And for a lot of our young people, they don't have that value now. So that's why Dr. Lafayette talks a lot about mentorship and the importance of mentorship, and also the importance of doing what you're doing now, which is getting a good education so that you can know, kind of help shape your direction. But I also wanted to see if you guys had any questions before, because I know we're about to wrap up, and I wanted to see if you all had any questions about interviewing, research, or about, the subject matter. Go ahead. Good morning.
Yes.
Is who sponsors Dr. Lafayette getting to Columbia or being in Columbia with Fox? Like, that's really interesting. They're actually, somebody's actually funding a program where they're going to bring, non-violent revolutionaries from North America to South America.
And they've done it in Nigeria. He has a corporation, and he trains people all over the world. He trains people in dorms, dorm leaders, RAs, in nonviolent conflict resolution. And they have a lot of, they make money during the training. They make thousands of dollars during the training. And then the governments of Nigeria, I think the government of Colombia, pay for their sponsorship. His training method is like a 3-day training. And in Nigeria and places like Colombia, they've done, longer training. So they have a corporation, and he lives in Tuskegee, Alabama, but he also teaches at Emory, so he lives part-time here. And he has had a lot of financial support through his training and also through governments that have brought them in to teach nonviolent conflict resolution. And yes, I definitely think a documentary, in fact, there was a documentary done on the Freedom Rides. One of the things that we talked about on the Atlanta student movement was how cool it would be to have a documentary of the Atlanta student movement, because that's of the Nashville student movement, the Freedom Rides are more well known than the Atlanta student movement, primarily because those movements involved quite a bit of violence, and the Atlanta student movement really did not. But the students here in Clark, at Spelman, at Morehouse, they had to go to the presidents and make their case as to why they could miss school and go protest downtown. Because at that time, the presidents of the college, fearing that they might get, injured or beaten or something like some of the other people had, didn't want them involved in the movement. Right. They discouraged it. So it would be like now, if students here tried to protest, would you have opposition from your administration? Do you think you would? If students here tried to protest? Or would the administration support you? Any thoughts on that?
Is there anything worth protesting that you've dealt with?
Decades, definitely. That's okay. Mm-hmm. That's good. That's good to know. Did we answer your question? Oh, the movie, yeah. I think it would be a good idea to do a movie, especially especially since these people are, slowly getting away from us. They're passing away. It was interesting at the funeral of Dr. Lonnie King. There were probably about 50 people that were part of the Atlanta student movement that came to the funeral. And it was interesting to see all of those people in that light come together that one time, because he was the leader of the student movement. So I think it would be a great idea to do a documentary. We shot, one thing that we did, and I think it helps to get an idea of what the personality of the person that you're interviewing is if you videotape the interview. Yeah. I just wanted to videotape my aunts one time talking about their lives, and it was hilarious. And they told some things about our family and their personal histories that I had no idea about, and they did it in such an animated way. But these interviews clearly were painful at times, and it's hard to get at the details that Charles is describing. It's hard to get at them. You have to, really do some deep diving and really get to know people before they'll, tell you some of the things that we heard that go, beyond the surface. And there was a lot of emotion that came through in the interviews, and so a movie would document some of that.
Yeah. Discussed it, visually. it will take some time. Excuse me. There are a lot of people. Many times when I was at Mr. King's house, the people that would come in, filmmakers and videographers, people wanted to do docs and all that, talking to him. So there are a lot of people trying to piece things together. We have a good platform, to launch, but we're going to have to take some time to pull everything together for a production like that. That's a good question, good idea. Something Angela mentioned earlier that I think is very important, and I didn't really think much about it until one of my friends, or our friends, Alicia Burton Steele, she was raised by her grandma, and she's a Pulitzer Prize winning photographer. So she's won awards for taking pictures, like the top award you can win, as far as journalism is concerned. And her grandmom passed. And she realized this woman who meant so much to her life, who had shaped her ideas and, given her foundation to become a woman upon. She didn't have her voice. So she had shot photos and, done interviews with all these different people, everybody else's grandmother, everybody else's mother, but not her grandma. So she set out on this project in the Mississippi Delta. She went to all these small towns, and before she would get to the town, she called the pastor, the prominent, the big roller preacher in the town, and she said, I need your queen. She needs to be over 75 years old, and I need to talk to her. So she got the blessing of the pastor, and she would go to these towns and interview these ladies, these women. Her book is just powerful. She didn't start off with it as a book. It was just an audio, video, take a picture, whatever. But someone found out about it and said, this needs to be a book. We've talked several times about just the power of capturing that message, capturing that funny story, capturing that legacy, that history, that blood that courses through your veins, their veins, similar, having something to hand down to your children and your children's children. And it's such a powerful thing, and it's so easy for us to do. We all have these, iPhones or, Galaxy notes and everything. There's an app on your iPhone. It's called Recorder. It looks like an old school tape recorder. Get your windscreen, a microphone, and just sit down one day with your dad or your mom, if you're blessed to still have them around, or your grandparents, if you're blessed to still have them around, and just ask them questions. Just, what was mama like? Your grandparent, your grandmom, what was mama like when she was a kid? And let them talk. That's something that when they transition, you have. And it's so simple, but it's so powerful. And it's something that we all can do. And I just encourage you to start with something small like that. Something that is really small, but it can be huge in the long run. And that might be a gateway to some bigger ventures for you.
All right, well, thank you guys for your attention. Alma, I think you had a question? Mhm.
So my question was, do you ever see the Black Lives Matter movement taking off like the Civil Rights movement did? And if not, why not?
You want me to answer that?
Yeah, you can go ahead.
I didn't think you were gonna. It's like, ooh. I'm gonna tread.
One thing I will say about it is there was so much urgency, and now we have ebbs and flows of urgency. They had a situation where it was just constant urgency. A lot of them were young people, like little kids when Emmett Till was murdered. They had that image in their mind. They had so many violent things that had happened to them and their families, and there was so much more urgency. But I do think that the students in the the people in the Black Lives Matter movement nationwide could learn so much from these pioneers, just on strategy and consistency.
That's the main thing. Strategy is number one, and we're always in sync. But I would say, when you say urgency back then, I think it's more urgent now. We've become numb to our brothers and sisters getting mowed down in the street. We've become numb to us killing each other. We get upset when, someone's just basically mowed down by the police. We protest, and then it dies down. The thing that I would say to the movement today is never stop moving. If a movement, keep it moving. When it's quiet, those are the times when you're strategizing. Those are the times when you are mobilizing. Those are the times when everybody doesn't need to be in the streets. Sometimes you need to have somebody who is online pushing the online campaign. Also, social media is as powerful, it's humongous. They didn't have that then, of course, so it was easier to control the message then. You didn't have, 15, you didn't have an organization that had all these different factions, just everybody saying what they think is important. And there's not a common message. Now, we're not a microcosm, but I think that our core issue needs to be found. And from that point, you go out, but you stick to your core message so that everybody is on the same accord. And we look like this versus this. This hurts if I slap you, but it hurts more if I punch you. We have to form a fist. That's what I would say for the current movements. There has to be, the egos have to get turned down. Everybody can't be the leader. The objective has to be set and understood across the board and stuck to.
You had a question. There were a couple of questions in the back. Then we're going to have to wrap up because I see our next illustrious speaker, Mr. Curtis Bunn, just walked in.
I was just wondering, what was the most important lesson you guys learned throughout
Just just how important it is to listen and learn your history. I mean, we have such a rich history, and if you just dig into it, you'll be motivated and inspired by it. And what was thanks, that's a great question. And what was your question?
Okay, so I recently read a quote from Dr. Martin King, and he said
Yes.
Go ahead.
Yes.
So you think segregation affected us more or integration affected us more?
That's a really good question.
My personal thought, and I got lit up for this by Mr. King, he lit me up. He lit me up. I said, the worst thing we could have ever done was integrate. He said, well, what were we supposed to do? We have made strides in society that segregation would not have allowed us to make. We would not have accomplished a lot of the things that we have had we not integrated. I'm with you. I'm not from Atlanta, as I said. I'm from Lexington. My wife, my mother-in-law, my family, they're from Atlanta. When you start talking about Greenbrier Mall, when I was at Clark, Greenbrier Mall was a decent mall. Shannon Mall was a decent mall. But everybody wants to go to Lenox. Everybody wants to go to Phipps. You're eroding your own tax base. If you're not putting money in your community, your roads don't get fixed. Theirs gets fixed. If you go to any box store, any corner large department store, and each one of those stores has a buyer. I know this because I was a fashion club vice president when I was here. I was an artist, art department, you know. The sister was in the fashion club. I was in the fashion club. So I dealt with merchandising and marketing and all that. Each store has a buyer. You go to that buyer and you say, you know what? Those, I don't know, some high-end Kanye or something, whatever. They might sell it at Phipps. I want it in my store. Bring it to my mall so I can spend my money in my community. I can spend my money to help fund. You know, if your tax dollars aren't going towards building your community, you're gonna have the worst schools because they don't have to listen to you. You know, compare the Target on Camp Creek to the Target in Atlantic Station. It's all because we don't go to management, and when it's quiet, you don't have to go in there and raise sand. You have to go in there and say, look, I shouldn't have to go to Atlantic Station or Buckhead or whatever to get this particular product. I want it here. What I do personally, if I go in your store and you treat me like trash, I'm not really gonna complain most times. I'm just not gonna spend my money with you. But when I go into a store and I get good customer service, I take the time to write. I find out the person's name. I take the time to write their manager. I do it all the time. My wife thinks I'm crazy. But I just don't have time to complain because once you get through talking, they don't care. Don't give your money to them. Great question. Great question.
I was in the line at Greenbrier Mall, Macy's, which is where I go because I believe in keeping my money and my community. And I heard these sisters derisively talking about why you don't come out to Blackbriar Mall, as if it were a bad thing, as if life was bad,
Yep.
and being here was bad.
Yep.
And I was looking at her like, are you really that stupid that you taking your money someplace and then you complaining because they're following you around?
Yep.
Stores, et cetera. You know, but you gotta keep, I'm so glad you said that you gotta keep your money in your community.
Yeah.
I mean, we look at what happens, you know, we sent our babies into schools to be taught by people who thought we were animals.
Yes. Yes.
We were devastated by integration because not that I understand why segregation wasn't working, but I think we did not ask the question.
Right.
What's going to be the consequence of integration
Yep.
And we did not have the wherewithal because we did not anticipate that.
Change the game. Change the game.
If they knew it was going to have that effect, we would not have had to fight.
Right. That's so true.
Change the game.
Thank you, guys. You all have
Yes.
been a great audience. We really appreciate
I applaud you guys.
you listening. Don't forget your door prizes.
Got to get your door prize.
What was one of the strategies that they used in Atlanta during the civil rights movement to, yes.
You know, and I always say peace and blessings when I answer the phone, when I send an email, because I understand the power of words. And I also know that whatever you send out into the universe is what you get back. And when I engage in people, what I'm wanting them to have is some peace and some blessings. And I know that whatever I give to them is what I'm getting back. So peace and blessings, y'all. All right. So as the interim chair of the Department of English and Modern Languages, I am so pleased to see you all here today. And I'm so excited about our guest speaker today. You all are in for a treat. And also, I'm giving away door prizes, one of which would be one of his books. So you all want to pay close attention to what he's saying. Also pay attention to your program so that you can make plans to attend all of the events. Tomorrow is the last day, but that does not mean tomorrow is the least day. So, having officially brought you welcome from the department, I'm going to bring up Ms. Alma Hill, who will give us the honors of the introduction.
Good morning. It's so nice to see some students from English 105 and 106. Welcome. I know you're going to take wonderful notes, right? Anyway, I had the pleasure of working with Curtis Bunn when we were news reporters at the Atlanta Journal-Constitution. He's always led a charmed life. He used to cover the NBA, and we were always so jealous because he never had to be in the newsroom. He traveled all over the country, and he knew all the cute guys, even though he never shared phone numbers with any of his colleagues. But anyway, so after newspapers started taking a nosedive in 2008, Curtis had already built a brand. And so he gladly left the newspaper and reinvented himself and became strictly an author instead of a reporter, an author, and all those other things. So in the last 9 years, he has written 10, a host of books. And he is an Essence magazine #1 best-selling author. He has 10 novels: Welcome to My World, Seize the Day, The Old Man in the Club, The Secret Lives of Cheating Wives, Seize the Day, Homecoming Weekend, A Cold Piece of Work, and Baggage Check. And I'm sure he is still writing, even as we speak. He looks like he's just standing there, but he's getting story ideas. And in addition to being a very prolific author, Curtis founded the National Book Club Conference, and it's a literary event that he's been putting on for 15 years right here in Atlanta. In addition to that, he is a professor. He teaches at his alma mater, which is, what is that, Norfolk State? And he teaches creative writing. One of the things, I want to be like Curtis when I grow up, because he said that he starts every day. The first thing he does every morning, guess what that is? Well, after that, he plays golf. He plays golf. Not every day, most days. And you should see the pictures that he posts online of the beautiful meals that he prepares. I mean, this man just has it going on. So, without further ado, let's welcome Mr. Curtis Bunn.
Good morning. Good morning. Thank you, Alma, and thank you, Dr. Montgomery, and all those who put on this event that's definitely needed. I generally like to talk to you and hear what you have to say, but in order to do that, you have to learn a little bit more about me, which is a little bit deeper than what Ms. Hill talked about in terms of substance. So I'll give you some background on how I got to where I am, and maybe it'll be of interest to you. Anyone want to write? Anybody wants to write books? Anyone interested in reading books? See one. Great. So one of the things I'll do is just tell you my career path and then talk about some of the books that I've done. And one of the interesting things I think about writing is coming up with ideas. Where do these ideas come from? And so I'll talk about a few of the books. I have some here, sort of a show and tell. I'll show you the books and I'll tell you about how those books evolve. Ultimately, though, I'm not supposed to be a writer or a journalist. I was going to be in the NBA. Period. As a kid, like most kids growing up in the city who love sports, that was my ambition. And it was my ambition for quite a while, well, at least until 13, and by the time I left high school, it switched a little bit. I had an English professor named Mr. Overton. He one day asked me, did I think about journalism? I was 13 years old. I wasn't quite sure. I can't remember whether I even knew what journalism was. But I said, no, and he said, well, he told me about it, and you ought to think about it as a career because you write really good, thoughtful papers. And I was like, okay. Went in one ear, out the other. But a little bit of it stayed in my head because I remembered it when another class 2 weeks later took called Consumer Education. There was an assignment to write about a career. And the teacher looked at me and said, you can't write about sports. So I'm like, what do I want to write about? My father worked at the Federal Communications Commission doing a job I wasn't sure. My mother was a telephone operator at what's now Verizon. And then I thought about what Mr. Overton said. And so I went home to not Wikipedia, not the internet, but to encyclopedias. Any of you have ever seen an encyclopedia? Yeah, okay, good. Good. Well, my parents took about a year or two to get the entire set. They would come to your home. These guys would literally knock on your door, and you let them in, and they give you a pitch. And the entire volume is about this wide, but we couldn't afford the volume at once, so we were buying it in increments. You get A through C for maybe $20 or whatever, and then 3 months later, you get D through F, and until a year and a half, 2 years later, you have a full volume. Well, we had J by then, and so I went home and looked up journalism. And in about the 7th or 8th paragraph, it said, some journalists make up to $500 a week. And for a 13-year-old who'd never seen $100, $500 a week sounded like a whole lot of money. And so I said, I better look into this journalism thing a little bit. And went to high school. Back then, high school started in the 10th grade, and I worked on the school paper, and I fell in love. The 11th grade, I was the editor of my student newspaper at Ballou High School in Southeast Washington, D.C., where I grew up. My senior year in the morning, I went to a career development center for journalism, and then my regular high school in the afternoon. All the while, I continued to play basketball and got scholarship offers to smaller schools. And the school that I really wanted to go to, I couldn't afford. They couldn't give me a scholarship, which was Pepperdine University. They couldn't give me a scholarship until the following year. I didn't want to sit out a year. And the other schools didn't have journalism programs. And so I chose Norfolk State University, and it was a beautiful experience for me. I went there, I worked on the school paper for all my 4 years there, from the first week to the last week, and I fell in love. And the scales switch from all basketball to even to journalism being everything I wanted it to be. I have a great affinity for HBCUs. That's why it's special for me to be here. I teach now at Norfolk State. I've been a visiting professor of creative writing for the last 2 years, and last year rather, 2 semesters, and it's been rewarded. I hope that your experiences at your school will be what mine was for me. I met my wife there. I pledged my great fraternity, Alpha Phi Alpha, there. Some of my closest friends are college roommates and people I met in college. And so I bleed Norfolk State green and gold. And I hope that you've had teachers like Mr. Overton along your path that have influenced you, given you a nugget of information that pushed you in the right direction. So when I left Norfolk State, I had 3 job offers to be a journalist. One was at the Winston-Salem Journal, one was in Norfolk at the Virginia Pilot where I interned, and the other one was at the St. Petersburg Times in Florida where I accepted that job. And that launched my career. And since then, I've been a sports writer. 1983 is what we're talking about. And it's been a miraculous ride. I know some of you are sports fans, I'm sure. You heard of Michael Jordan. I got to cover Michael Jordan quite a bit, get to know him a little bit, traveled the world, covering the Olympics in Australia in 2000, Olympics in Korea in 1988, 5 Super Bowls, 17 NBA Finals, the World Series 3 or 4 times, championship boxing. I was there when Holyfield got his piece of his ear bitten off by Mike Tyson. And so it's been a whirlwind. I transitioned to writing books because I was always a reader. I didn't realize I was a reader. I never called myself a reader, but when we got our Christmas gifts growing up, Rock'em Sock'em Robots, Electric Football Men, skates, basketballs, whatever, my parents always got us books also. And I read those books, and it was just natural for me to read them. Now people's like, oh, you're an avid reader. Well, I was an avid reader and unaware of it. And so in 1992, I read Terry McMillan's Waiting to Exhale. It was all the hoopla. So let me see what this thing is about. And I was in Hawaii on vacation, and I read it, and I loved it. And I got it. It was a revealing story about Black life for these 4 or 5 female friends that generally hadn't been told before in that authentic, contemporary fashion. And I said, I could do this. I can write a story like this just from a male's perspective. And then I sat at my computer and looked at that empty screen, and it was 7 years later before I started my first novel. It's an intimidating thing, but it is a fun thing. And so that book turned out to be this book. My first novel was called Baggage Check. It's about the lives of 3 guys who are very, very good friends with each other, but in relationships they flounder because they have baggage that they carry from one relationship to the next. And so it prevents them from being the committed kind of men that they could be, because they all had great potential. Well, midway through the book, things happen to them, and they do something happens I call a baggage check, where they're able to actually check that luggage and open up to be the kind of Mason relationships they never expected them to be. And the book was very well received. It ended up being #1 on the Essence bestsellers list, and I've been passionate about writing ever since. I bought some books here just to show you what I think is important is, particularly for readers, I'm sure when you're reading books, you're like, how did they come up with this idea? Particularly when there's clever ideas. And so I just want to tell you about, so Baggage Check essentially came from Terry McMillan's book. I just wanted to write about relationships from a male point of view, didn't know what I wanted that story to be. It wasn't even called Baggage Check at first. At first it was called From Lust to Love. And my agent, because essentially that's what these young guys were. They were just young guys running around, irresponsible, and not caring about women's feelings, but then they eventually grew up, and that's what it amounts to. They grew up. And from there, I'll give you a couple of books that I've written. Let's start with this one. This book is called Homecoming Weekend. This is about, well, the idea came from, I was at homecoming, and 6-7 years ago, and a friend of mine had not been to homecoming in years, and it was a beautiful day, like 75 degrees, perfectly sunny, and we were walking down toward the tailgate, and the band was marching behind us, and the football team had won, and there were 20,000 people out there, and barbecue, and it was just an amazing scene. And this one guy said, man, I can't even believe this. I haven't been back in so long, because when I was in college, we didn't have a stadium on campus at that time. We played our games over at Old Dominion University. By then, we had a beautiful stadium on campus and could tailgate on campus. So he said, man, this looks like a movie. And for a writer, for me, I processed to mean it could be a book. And so I wrote this book about what it's like to go back to homecoming after several years and try to reconnect with old flames that you didn't have the confidence enough to pursue when you were there, and these reconnections that were developed when people were younger. And when I wrote the book, when my friends knew I was writing the book, at homecoming the following year, they were like, stay away from Curtis, he's gonna put you in his book. So, but in the end, they could all relate to the book, and they all really kind of thought it was them, because I think the stories at HBCU homecomings are very specific, but also very common. So it's a fun book. The responses that I got from the book that really moved me were women. One woman in particular who went to Howard said she graduated in 1983, had never been back to homecoming. Read the book and said, I'm going to my homecoming for the first time since I've graduated. It was more than 25 years. And she went back and, ironically enough, found her old flame at homecoming and rekindled a relationship. Yeah, I'm not sure how long it lasted, but that did happen. So sometimes ideas come to you based on what you're doing in your life, what you see, what you're thinking. This book is called Seize the Day. This book is about a man who finds out that he has terminal cancer, and how does he try to live his last days on earth. This book was inspired by two young ladies I knew from college who I was around them. One of them didn't tell us that she had terminal cancer. At a party at homecoming, acting like nothing happened, having a good time. And 2 or 3 months later, she was gone. And another young lady I knew, I knew she was sick, but I saw her in New York, and she was hanging out with her girlfriends and trying to enjoy life. And I just thought that was so strong, because I just feel like I may just curl up in a corner in the dark and stay there until I pass away. But I thought I saw strength in them, and so I wanted to write about that. So this is actually a very inspiring book, because once this man who lived a very pedestrian lifestyle found out that he was going to die, after he got up off the ground, which took a while, he started living. And his world opened up to him in ways that he never expected. And so he doesn't die in the book. I couldn't kill him off. And I meet with book clubs quite often about the books, and the women were mostly it's women who are in these book clubs, and a lot of them were like, if you had killed this man off, I was gonna kill you. So I knew that wasn't the way to go. I knew, because I felt for him, I related to him, and so it's a very inspiring book. But so this is a case where an idea came from people that I knew and what they were going through. This is a book called The Old Man in the Club. I found myself that guy by accident, wasn't intentional. Growing up, when I was in my 20s, I went out all the time. I'm telling you, every night of the week if I could. I think Tuesday night was the only time in DC where it really wasn't anything happening. Any other night, I was out. But I would see older guys, I'm like, why is this old man in here? I don't get it. And old is relative, because when you're 20, old could be 45, old could be 50. So, but I'm like, this old dude, why is he in here? Well, I had a friend who's from Milwaukee. Anybody in here from Milwaukee? You are? Okay, well, don't be offended. It's not much happening in Milwaukee. So a friend of mine lived there, nobody visited him, so I said, I'll visit you. Went to Milwaukee, and he wanted to make sure we had a good time, so we went out, had a nice dinner. He's like, come on, man, I got us a VIP section at a club. I'm like, what? He's like, yeah. I'm like, okay. We go in there, the music is so loud. I'm 50 years old at that time. The music is so loud, the lights are going across. I'm like, the kids are looking like my daughter. I'm like, oh my God. I said, JB, we're the old men in the club, man. We can't stay. He said, well, I gave him my credit card. I said, get your money back, man. We can't stay. So we left. But on my way out, as a writer, I'm always thinking about stuff to write about. And on my way out, I was like, this is a story. Why is this old man in the club? Why do they go to the clubs? And I didn't want him to be a dirty old man. So I thought about it for months, and I came up with this idea. This book is about a guy who went to prison for 12 years for crimes he didn't commit. And he was wrongfully accused, got exonerated after 12 years, but he went in at 20, came out at 32, and fell in love and had a great life, and then the marriage fell apart. And he wanted to get, so as part of his healing process was, I'm gonna get my 20s back that I missed. And so let me start going out to the club and pursuing these young girls. And his psychologist said, well, if you try to recapture your 20s, why aren't you hanging out with young men in their 20s? And he didn't have a good answer for that. But the real twist was that, of course, he had twin children who were in college, a son and a daughter, and the girl that he was dating turned out to be one of their college friends. So all kind of controversy ensued behind that. So it is a fun book. It's an enlightening book. It deals heavily with this wrongful imprisonment that black men face so often, how you deal with it. Ironically enough, as I was writing the book, maybe 3/4 of the way through, I got an email from a text message from a friend who said, I have a guy, I want you to write his book. And I get that quite often. I was like, I don't have time for this. And I started reading. She sent me a clip to a story about it. I clicked on it. This guy had been in prison for 12 years for a rape he didn't commit. And I was like, whoa, I think I better return this text message and see what this is about. His name is Herman Atkins from Los Angeles, and we ended up writing his book that'll be coming out pretty soon, where a woman claimed that he was in Lake Eisenhower, California, which he had never heard of, and pointed him out in a lineup and said that he had raped her, even though there was no evidence, no fingerprints, even though supposedly he hung out in the store looking at clothes, went in and out of the store, touching the handles, going in and out. No matches to fingerprints or anything. No way to get to, he lived in Compton, no way to get there. He would have had to catch a bus and take an hour and a half to get there. And he had an alibi that he was in Dallas at the time, plane tickets, everything, and he was still convicted based on so-called eyewitness identification. So, very compelling story, listening to him talk about what he had to go through in prison and the adjustments getting out into a world where they don't give you an apology, they don't give you any money, they don't give you anything. They basically say, well, one person said to him, I can't remember whether it was a district attorney or the victim herself said, well, if you didn't do that, if you didn't do it, then you would have done it to somebody else anyway. So, yeah. So he was helpful in the psychological aspects of how this character, Elliot, in the book, adjusted to real life. Also with this book, I wrote the screenplay to this book 2 years ago. Breaking into Hollywood is tough, but I did meet a producer who knew Dennis Haysbert. You all know who Dennis Haysbert is? Yes. Waiting to Excel. He's the All-State guy with the really deep voice, and he loved the script, and he signed on to play the lead in the movie. So hopefully we'll get the financing in the next, who knows when, and you'll see it on the big screen. So. But that's how that idea came about, going to Milwaukee and feeling like the actual old man in the club myself. I'll do 2 more, and then I'll open up to questions. This book is called The Truth is in the Wine. I went to South Africa in 2012, and I wasn't necessarily a wine drinker. I didn't appreciate wine so much, but these young African sommeliers were so interested and engaging and educational about wine and where the grapes are grown and how to sip it and how to hold the glass and all these elements that I really didn't pay any attention to. And it made me pay attention to the wine, and I started really enjoying it. So I became a wine enthusiast after that. And so I wanted to write a story around wine. And then I was like, okay, so how's this story gonna be interesting? And so this story is about a young couple that's in trouble in the marriage. The husband loses his job, and he's depressed. He becomes depressed. And then he wins the lottery. And he's not depressed anymore. I know I wouldn't be. But the wife is just done with him. And he's like, he wants to win this wife back. He wants to win her back. But he doesn't want her to come back just because of the money. He wants her to come back on his own merit. So he decides he's not going to tell her he won the money. Instead, he told her that he was a part of a class action suit, banks overcharging for overdraft fees, and he had enough money now for them to take this trip that they always wanted to take to Napa Valley. And let's use this as a healing opportunity for us to come back together. She was resistant, of course, at first, but she loved her husband. So she said, I'll go on one condition. I'll go if my mother goes with us. And he's like, wait a minute. Your mother doesn't like me, and I don't really like her that much either, so how is this going to work? And this is defeating the purpose. We go in there to connect. And she says, well, that's my condition. So he says, and her mother had become a widow a year earlier. The father had a massive heart attack and died. So her reason for her mother going was valid. Her mother needed something to get away and kind of rejuvenate herself. So the husband said, well, okay, your mother can go if my mother can go. And she had the same feeling about her mother-in-law. She doesn't like me, I don't like her, or I don't dislike her, but I can't like her because she doesn't like me. So on top of that, the two mother-in-laws don't get along. One is relatively sophisticated, the other one is raw and rough around the edges. But they end up coming together to take this trip to Napa Valley. And what happens, I'm sure none of you all drink, you're too young to be drinking, but you'll learn later if you have too much wine, sometimes the truth comes out. Lips get loose, and you start sharing things that you shouldn't share. And so instead of coming together when they get out there, they start drinking this wine and telling these secrets that really fracture them even more. But it's hilarious in the way that it happens. And ultimately, of course, they're able to get through it, they get beyond it. But it's a story about the revelation of secrets that really, I guess we all have them, and we can say we shouldn't have them. I think human nature is that it'll never get out. That's our thought process. It'll never get out, so I'm going to keep this secret. But generally speaking, they will come out, and if you're around people who are drinking too much and don't know how to handle their wine or alcohol, they will reveal them. The truths will reveal themselves. So this book is from the Latin expression in vino veritas, which means in wine there is truth. Very fun book. I wrote the screenplay through this book as well. The last one I'll talk about is called Welcome to My World. This book is based in Atlanta, and my wife and I live in the city, downtown, not far from the Fox Theater. And until they closed the homeless shelter maybe more than a year ago, we saw homelessness every day. And it was disturbing. And it's sort of like when I saw the old men in the club back in the day, like, why is he in the club? I also thought about what happens to bring someone to the streets like this. And so I wanted to examine that, and in the process of doing that, I wanted to pair him with someone, and I ended up pairing him with a woman who was depressed, because when you're writing a book, and I think any book that you've ever written that's very interesting to you, the main characters have to go somewhere. They want to get from A to B, but it can't be a straight line. The more drama you can take them through, the more interesting they become, and the more you'll root for them. So this woman had lost her self-esteem, so she gained weight. Her husband left her. She lost her job. Her best friend moved to Australia, and she lost her dog. So she was in the dumps. She would stop at McDonald's on the way to work, go to work, stop at McDonald's on the way home, and then go home and cook dinner. At McDonald's, she encountered this homeless guy who told her some truths about her that she couldn't understand how he could know. And she was offended by it. And she went home and she was like, you know what? She almost couldn't sleep because she was so offended. He just basically told her that her life was miserable, that she was a miserable person. And she had tried to help him. Instead of giving him money, she went in and bought him a sandwich, and he didn't want the sandwich. So he insulted her, and she thought about it, so she went back looking for him that next morning. And she didn't see him. But she saw him in the afternoon, and they had this confrontation, and it came to a place where she empathized with him and started going to McDonald's every day to talk to him, and he embraced her enough to, they started walking the streets of Atlanta together and talking and enjoying each other. And he opened up to her, and he had mental issues. Homelessness is about a couple of things. Once you get in the work world, you'll hear the expression is that everybody's, or many of us are one payday away from being homeless. That's one. There's also alcoholism and drug abuse. And there's this PTSD syndrome from war or other traumatic experiences that you may have. But also a real serious, significant one is mental illness. And this guy in the book, Rodney, had mental illness in his life, and it affected him in a way. I mean, he was just perfectly fine. And he's called Rodney in the book because I had a friend who went to Norfolk State with me named Rodney Green. Perfectly normal guy. We played ball together, hung out, great dude. All of a sudden, I moved to New York to work, and they said, man, Rodney's on the street. So I'm like, what? Lo and behold, I came home. I'm at the corner of Pennsylvania and Minnesota Avenues in D.C., and here he comes walking toward me. I was so embarrassed. I said, I could see him off in the distance, so I started acting like I was getting something from my glove compartment. And he knocked on the window. Bun, what's up, man? I'm like, oh my. So I rolled the window down, like, Green, what's going on? He's like, I'll be all right, but I'm like, no, you gotta let me help you. He's like, nah, I'll be all right, man. I just need some money for a sandwich. So I gave him what I had, and he walked on. But that stuck with me for a long time, and that's really, after living in the city and seeing homelessness and recalling that instant with Rodney Green, it inspired me to write this book. And it is another uplifting book. It's about the power of embracing people that may not be like you and how you can influence people. You don't ever know what you say and how it can help people. Encouraging words on a daily basis to people can mean something. And it makes you feel good as well. Because a lot of times, I believe, we just have to do what we know is right. That's what I used to tell my children. Do what you know is right. Don't worry about whether they appreciate it or not. If you come, it has to come from the heart, do it without looking for something in return, and you're doing what you should do as a good human being. And so this woman opens up to Rodney, and Rodney opens up to her, and they walk the streets, and they come to a place where she helps resolve his serious issues, and she loses weight and regains her self-esteem, and now becomes a part of this man's life. And there's some really other interesting twists I don't want to spoil for you, because I'm hoping that at some point you'll read the book, and the worst thing I could do is spoil it for you. But it's a very interesting, fun book, and it's an inspiring story about hope and how we can help each other as humans. So those are just 6 of the books that I've written. The other books all were inspired by something in my life, something I'm thinking about. One of the things about being a writer is you're a thinker. I'm always thinking about stuff. I mean, I'm looking at this particular scenario right now. I could have this scene in a book based on a character who's going to speak to students. Everything in my life now matters more ever since I started writing books. I'm much more observant of people and what's around me and what I see and hear. So the young lady who said she was interested in being a writer, please be a reader and then be a thinker. And of course, flourish in English and know the grammar and punctuation and that kind of thing. But you have to you have to be a reader to be a writer. That's significant in ways I can't imagine. And I teach creative writing at Norfolk State, and all of my students want to write books, and then half of them say they don't read books. I'm like, we have a problem here. You can't excel at writing if you don't read. It's not possible. So the last thing I'll just say is this. My skills as a journalist were very transferable to what I'm doing now. Knowing that I wanted to be a journalist forced me to study hard in English, to be excellent at grammar. And writing as a journalist was the job of my dreams. I still consider myself a journalist first. I love it. The industry changed so much that I'm very disappointed in it, in how the leadership handled or mishandled the evolution of the internet, but I love newspapers. Do any of you pick up newspapers? I know you read it. Where do you get your news? Twitter? Nobody holds a newspaper in their hand? Have you ever held a newspaper in your hand? Okay. I have to ask because some of our students say, no, I taught at Morehouse for 4 years, sports journalism, and some of them say that they get it all off of Twitter or the internet. And when I lived in New York, I read 5 papers a day, every day. Part of it is because you're on the train, you have that opportunity to do so, but it was that important to me. And so the transferable skills of being a journalist can allow you to be a professor, it can allow you to be an author, it can allow you to work in public relations, media consultant. There's so many areas in which when you understand English and you flourish in that discipline, it's boundless opportunities for you. So with that, I'll open up to any questions if there are any. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so my question is like, what's your process? So you have some people, for example, might like take a shower, drink a cup of tea, and start to write. What works for you?
That's a good question. She asked if you didn't hear it, what's my process for writing? Some people may wake up, take a shower, and drink coffee, and then start writing. Mine varies. When I wrote my first book, I was still a journalist at the Atlanta Journal-Constitution, and raising my daughter, and so I would do the work of the day, pick her from school and get her together and get her to bed. And then around 11 o'clock, I'll start writing. It was more peaceful then. The phone wasn't going to be ringing. I could focus a little bit better. And sometimes when I was on the road, I would literally write until it was time to wake her up and take her to school. I can't stay up late like that anymore. So I write more now during the day. I was on deadline for one of these books, and I had about a 9-month deadline, 9-month period to write the book. Well, 9 months is a long time. I can write a book in about 4 months, 5 months tops. I took it easy, and I looked up, it's like 3 months before the book is done. I've done like a quarter of the book. So I found myself very distracted by television. So I had to call my cable people and tell them, turn off the cable until I tell you to turn it back on so that I can get some work done at home. I like to work at home mostly, in the bed, on the couch, very seldom at a desk. I don't know why. And since then, I've written a lot in Starbucks or other places, public places where I can observe people but not have the access to. I'm a news junkie, and with the current person in the White House, news is so disarming and so alarming that you listen to it and you can't stop. So I have to get out of the house now and write. So I don't have a set way to write. Like Walter Mosley, you all heard of Walter Mosley? He's a prolific author, and he's written movies, Devil in the Blue Dress, starring Denzel Washington, Always Outnumbered, Always Outgunned, starring Lawrence Fishburne, which was for HBO. Well, he's come to the conference that Ms. Hill referenced and talked about his writing process, which is every day he writes at least for an hour, no matter what, every day. And he's writing in coffee shops and restaurants, it doesn't matter. I can't write every day. I have to be inspired to write, but I'm inspired most days to write. But so the process definitely varies depending on who you are. Yes, very good question. One other thing I'll say about that, when I wrote my first book, I did not write an outline. I just started writing. And things started coming to me as I was writing. I went to see August Wilson, the great playwright who wrote Fences, Piano Lessons, 2 Trains Running. I used to see all those plays on Broadway. I saw him at the Woodruff Arts Center, and he talked about, before I started writing, he talked about how the characters will live inside you. They'll know who you are. They'll bring out their voices to you. And I was like, yeah, okay. Well, he was right. I know who these people are. It's crazy. So all these people are kind of living in your head. And you didn't have no idea that you had that much room in your head for these people, but it's sort of a metaphysical kind of thing where you know who these people are. And that's been a big help in terms of writing, because they won't talk to me, but I understand who they are. And that helps me in terms of how they speak, what they say, what they do. Yeah. Yes, sir. Oh, yes, ma'am. I'm sorry.
My question is, who's your audience? Everyone talks about when you write, who are you writing to? So for you, who are you writing to or for?
Very good question as well. Thank you. Generally speaking, I'm writing about people in relationships, African American people in relationships. By and large, the audience, the readers are women, significantly more. Men, the men who do read, they read books about finance, biologies, about people that they may admire or want to learn more about. So primarily it's black women who want to know about what men think about in relationships, why we do the things that we do. That was the beginning, for sure. Now it's, and there's that element in almost everything that I do. But the books vary into deeper territory as well about how do you deal with impending death, how do you deal with divorce, and women can relate to it. And I've had my friends who didn't read novels step up and start reading my books, and they really appreciate the authentic position that I'm taking. I'm not an apologist for men in bad behavior or irrational thought processes at all, but I explain as best I can, based on my own experiences and my own perception of people around me, why men do the things that they do, why we think as we do, particularly in relationships. And they respect that. A couple of them say, man, you letting out some of our secrets. But in the end, they appreciate the fact that it's authentic and they can relate to the characters. Yes, sir.
What writers do you have in
What writers? Okay. Walter Mosley is one for sure. James Baldwin, who, has anybody seen the Beale Street Could Talk, the movie? Great. See, when I was a reader, didn't realize I was a reader. I read that book when I was a teenager or something. So there's Walter Mosley, who is more contemporary but very thoughtful. There's James Baldwin, who I really appreciate his perspective from a generation that I wasn't in. There's J. California Cooper, who passed a few years ago. You familiar with J. California Cooper? She's a brilliant, she wrote a lot of short stories. Really interesting, thought-provoking short stories about life, but a beautiful storyteller and a beautiful developer of characters, which is very strong for a writer. And there's a homeless guy in New York, Lee, oh my goodness, Struthers. He was a homeless man in New York who started writing these little passages, and somebody said, man, this is pretty good. And he ended up writing a book about his life. He was a drug addict living under Grand Central Parkway. And he ended up writing a book with Kurt Vonnegut, who is a famed author. So Lee Stringer is his name. So I make sure that they read him as well. Yes, ma'am.
You said James Baldwin. This class, my class is reading James Baldwin's, what's the one, it's Black English. What is it? It's Black English isn't a language, then what it is?
Mm-hmm.
You know that piece?
I don't.
That's a good one for your class.
It's a book or it's an essay.
It's Black English isn't a language.
What is?
What is?
Thank you. I will definitely research that. Okay.
How our language has been stolen from us, our rhythm, our culture. So how can you talk about Black English when you need it to help you with your English?
Exactly.
That's the bottom line.
No doubt. Yes.
So what would you say is the hardest part about the writing process?
The hardest part about writing, Ernest Hemingway would say all of it. Many of the famous authors say it's very difficult. And I tend to agree with it only because it's your work, so it's very personal to you. It's like a child. People say, well, which is your favorite book? Well, I can't say. It's like I birthed all of them, so they all mean so much to me. Maybe the hardest is just getting started. Come up with an idea and then nurturing that idea. And once you get into it, then it becomes a little bit easier because you understand the characters, you understand where the story is going. And then it becomes hard again when you want to end it. How do you want this to end? Where it's a satisfying end, that it's an authentic end, that it's an ending that makes sense. And, you know, it's also tough to end because over the course of all this time that you're writing, you love these characters, you know who they are, and you know that you're going to dispose of them. They're going to be gone, and now you're going to have to restart with something else. So this is somewhat of an emotional issue of letting the characters go when you're done with them to move on to the next work as well. So I would say starting is the most difficult because, like I said, it took me 7 years to start Baggage Check, but I thought about it for 7 years. All the time it's on my mind. And when I had the courage enough to say, I'm going to start doing this. And I had the courage because a friend of mine named Deneen Milner, who's an author, and she does children's books now, but she wrote Taraji P. Henson's book, and she wrote Steve Harvey's book, Act Like a Lady, Think Like a Man, and others. She called me one day after I moved from New York to Atlanta, and she said, a part of the conversation was, when are you going to write this novel? I know you have a novel in you. And for some reason, those words inspired me. I had been thinking about it for 7 years, and that night, I started writing Baggage Check. So starting is the most difficult, and then ending is the most difficult because you want to end it the right way that wraps up the story, but also there's this emotional part of letting these characters go. Yes, ma'am.
I wanted to ask, how many books have remained incomplete?
How many books have remained incomplete?
Have you been inspired to write and begin the writing process, or just never complete?
That's another very good question. One, ironically enough, I switched it up. I started writing it 2 days ago as a screenplay. So it was one book that I started, 10 or 12 years ago. Put it aside because I thought a better idea came and never revisited it. But I thought about it's a strong storyline, so I started it as a screenplay two days ago. Yeah, 2 days ago. So that's it. The other unwritten one is the one that I'm working on now, called The Last Bachelor, about a guy who turns 50, never been married, no kids, and feels like he's at a crossroads in his life because all his friends have gotten married. The women are like, what's wrong with you? You've never been married, you don't have any kids, something's wrong here. And he doesn't know how to deal with it. So he's trying to figure out his life based on this milestone birthday and not having really anyone in his life. He's had women, he can get women, but he hasn't had a woman for him and no children. So that's the one that I want to finish by July. I'm about maybe 2/5 through that. So I have some work to do. Anybody started a book? Anybody, you want to write a book? Yes.
I write a lot of short narratives, but I have not published any.
Right. Yeah. No one else wants to write a. Somebody said they wanted to write a book earlier. Maybe she left. You, okay. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Well,
Like, for example, writing my poems to myself are very deep emotion. I mean, emotions and feelings. And when someone else reads me, they don't really, like, they feel infinite in mine, but they don't feel the emotion.
they don't feel the emotion of the poem.
Like, when I write a poem, I'm very, like, if I'm sad, it's filled with emotion.
Mm-hmm.
It's deep, but they don't feel that same emotion.
Right. Well, I mean, you can't control that. A lot of stuff is subjective because if they are happy in their life and they may not want to even go to that place.
I mean, like, when I'm writing, if I want to write someone else's story,
Mm-hmm.
a lot of people could relate to that. It's just mine, it's not my story.
Mm-hmm.
If that makes sense.
Right. It's not your story. You writing about someone else's easier? Yeah. Right. Well, that's good. Because, I mean, unless you just want to write biography or autobiographies about you or stuff about yourself, writing about other people is great. I think if you write it, do it well, thoughtful, then other people will be able to relate to it. Most people will be able to relate to it because it's a common thing. The last thing I'll say is it's very important for you and others who, at your age, and this time in particular, to become writers, to be able to, or at least be prolific in English so that you can tell the story of the millennial era and what we're going through right now with police shootings, with this guy in office, with the backlash of with the LGBTQ XYZ community. You know, all of this stuff that's going on is unprecedented, and you're living it. And so it's very important that you're able to tell that story and tell it well. So don't ever sleep on the value of English and understanding writing. You may not even want to be a writer now, but at some point you may be moved to tell that story. And if you have the skill set to do it, then you can do it really well. Last question, I think.
You mentioned a lot of writers. Have you published your own bibliography, explaining just the writers that are your influences and are your inspirations?
No, I haven't. I'm not sure. I mean, I talk about it, but I don't know if it's worth writing about it. But certainly, I can start with James Baldwin as an influence, for sure, and many others who I read and enjoy greatly and are inspired by them. But I talk about them all the time because they're significant. But the idea of writing about it, I'm not sure. Yes.
Not necessarily writing, but as English majors, we sometimes don't have the greatest opportunity to see those individuals who have influenced African American writers, and just to have a bibliography
Sure.
of those individuals would just be good.
Absolutely. Absolutely. To your point, when I taught at Morehouse, Spike Lee started the journalism program, and he gave us a list of the books that he really thought that students should read. There's a long list, more than maybe 100 books or so. So, very good point. Thank you.
Well, if there are no more questions, let's give Mr. Bunner a hand.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
So I have 2 good days before the honors humanities class leaves. Not saying that you'll win both of them. I'll give you a fair chance. Okay. So how long would he say it takes him to write a book? He said there's an average, it can take forever, but there's an average length of time. See, someone's hand went up. I can do it first. 9 months? No. Next person, right here next. 4 to 5 months. You are correct. So it's 4 to 5 months. Let's get started. This would be a really easy question. I'm just looking at it. So this won't be a giveaway. But what did he really want to be when he grew up? No, not just a basketball player. An NBA player. That's different. That's not one. So, let's see. What is another one? What is the hardest part for him about writing? Yes. Very good.
The students had an article that involved Black English as my language to tell me what is, so we like to share that with you. We like to share that with you.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
It's written on because it was one of the students.
Thank you.
And we just also like to know if we can get a picture with you guys.
Okay, we have one more giveaway, and I think he will autograph this. So, let me see, one more question. You want to ask him a question? Teacher, you want to ask him a question?
What was the title of my first book?
An Al-Qaeda liquor store, an Iraqi soldier, 14 years old and strapped. This is the domino effect with one guarantee. We all fall down, but get up with Desert Eagles Velcro to our wrists, fingers super glued to the trigger with a quarter and a prayer. Love is 70-30, not 50-50, and definitely not 50. While you waited for the hook, it was 4 bars ago. I only said it once so you don't get reeled in. My philosophy is your head is rocking because your neck nose is fat. Yeah, period. Watch for it. Try not to miss it. Here it comes again. They call it a hook because their next line is a sinker. A weight to keep you underestimated, under distress. They think your head is bobbing, but you're trying to catch your breath, trying to gasp for help. Here's another fiasco. I found a condom under a merry-go-round on the playground and asked God, what are we coming to? Of course he'd end up in prison. He's been counting hooks and bars since he was 11. Mama couldn't afford the tuition without the scholarship. Didn't believe in him enough to push for academics. All creative children end up on Prozac. What she didn't know is intelligence is genetic. On her first prenatal visit, her ultrasound revealed profound qualities and leadership abilities. Now they're seeping poison in our embryonic fluid, calling it prenatal care, but what they're preventing here is a chance for our race to finally end up there. Love is war and cardiac arrest. Where's my smoke signal, motherfucker? Where is your flare? Watch how she sway. I'm it, but you can't buy this on eBay. I got swagger like Katrina meets Titanic like. You can keep commercial. I'm for the people. Okay, you got a couple of seasons. I'm for the sequel. I already been in the source. This is the new game. I already been spoken words. So what you saying? I've been divorced twice, so you can call me off the chain. You don't catch me doing back bands or black sands, but I will take the backlash for all black women. You can finally catch the hook when you stop listening. Wait for the beat to change to tell you when you can chime in. It'll sink in like your patch for nicotine. The distinct difference is this test, you might want to end up positive. Yo, they mad at my stilettos. I tell them you can still be fly off the sale rack at the Gap, but your shoes are a reflection of you. They should match your attitude. Shit, I'm as mean as my shoe game. They gotta check their 401ks before fucking with me. Ladies, if you ain't pumped about your pumps or shit, I don't know what to tell you. They mad when I pull up to the poetry spot in the 6th drop. Mr. Backpack and African Beads tries to challenge me, says we're supposed to be struggling. I tell my I'm listening to you. I rock like 2 teenagers in heat, foggy mirrors in the backseat of mom's stolen SUV, parked in the park after dark. Don't talk to me about jet setting. Talk to me when you've been first class on the Silver Bullet from Switzerland to Conn, from the UK to Milan, on a train with its back bends around the mountains bend, and you think you've seen it until you look out the window and you're 2 inches from the scenic. Your head is always in the clouds, so you miss the ocean spray in the morning, the sunsets in London. See, that was a trick. You're still not paying attention. There aren't any sunsets in London. The mountains in Scotland, the hills in Frome. Brothers, talk to me when you can pay my student loans with 1 check stub. And I don't mean then you can talk to me. I mean then you can talk to me. Holler at me when your passport stamps match mine. Until then, you're just another international local, not even listening, just waiting for the punchline. But yo, hip-hop, I got your CDs. I left them at home. I spot you 10 bars, yo. You couldn't take my throne. And yo, if that's all they got for battle rhymes, I let them keep my CD so they can study for next time. Make some noise, you guys. Make some noise. Wake up. I know it's the middle of the afternoon and after lunch. Y'all could do better than that. My name is Queen Sheba. I'm a professor here. I teach poetry and fiction, and my classes are literature, and it's gonna be fun. So we're gonna have some other students come up here, and if you feel so inclined to wanna get up here and perform a poem or a story or sing a song, then you are more than welcome to. This is my or text me if you wanna come up here and want to get on our open mic for the next hour. Don't worry, I never answer the phone. You can never harass me, and there's always the block button if you get ridiculous. So text me if you want to get up here in the next hour. If you feel inspired, if the spirit moves you, you want to share a poem, a song, or a story. Y'all say, all right? Oh, we're not going to be lame. I'm not lame. You see these tattoos and these piercings? I'm not lame. We're not going to be lame. Y'all say, all right? That's awesome. Great. All right, so I have some people here from my fiction class that are going to read, some people here from my poetry class that are going to read. So who wants to go first, guys? Beautiful, you want to go first? Terrell, you want to go first? Come on, Terrell. I went first, so we'll go man, woman, man, woman, man, woman, man. We'll go like that. Y'all put your hands together. He's in my poetry class. I don't care if you know him or not, he's now your friend. This is TK. Y'all put your hands together for TK.
What's up, everybody? I'm TK. I'm Scream just said. I'm going to read a poem about love. Yay! Thank you. Thank you. See, what I like most about her is her eyebrows. They're like Cirrus clouds, how feathery they ebb and flow, touch my fingertips, and they're wonderful. Like the wild curls you can't contain. The maple, canvas skin just so silky, colorful living your experience. See, you are an hourglass half full, and look at me, you, stand tall, all 5'4" of you, listen up, I know, you're the vision that I see with my eyes wide shut, and I hear your voice in my solitude. So let me prove my difference to you and call me back. So that's one of them. Keep going with that.
Do one more.
Yes, ma'am. So, it's gonna be a series of limericks, 3 in total. They're gonna tell a story about a assignment we had in class. I'm talking about 45. Yeah, this is very nerve-wracking. Okay. Oh, great God, I knew. I found home at CAU. Now I traveled far to flee from the windy north. I came home to the dreams of warmth. If only I knew I could get some food, because that cap is trash. Sorry, not sorry, I found someone better. She's not like you, more alive and clever, and I think about you less now. Sure, you move on somehow, but look, I needed someone more put together. And 45. Thank you, 45. Because of you, I respect my president now. So my president is black and headstrong. Your president is not. He's dead wrong. See, we don't need walls to feel tall. We use diction, not lies to enthrall. And remember, my culture lives strong. And that's what I have for you.
Thank you, TK. Okay, so if you guys like something that you hear, snapping was for the 60s so that they didn't get shot by the police that were walking around outside of their homes while they were inside. So we're gonna clap and cheer and give them a whole bunch of energy. Okay, y'all say all right? All right. Okay, cool. I don't wanna mess this name up. It's Obadiah Fuller. Obadiah, I apologize. Obadiah Fuller. Come on up, Obadiah Fuller. Y'all could do better than that. Clap her all the way to the stage, all the way to the stage.
Hi. Hi. Okay. So I have a blog. So if y'all want to go and, check out my blog, it's called Chicken Scratch with an X, not a CK. So chickenscratch.wordpress.com. Okay, sorry. This titled, Why That Name? So I just told you it's named Chicken Scratch. So this is a poem on why I named it Chicken Scratch. Okay. I decided it was time to rhyme. Since it's my blog and I'm lit off wine. See, consistency is what I lack. Because autocorrect been holding me back. But if you're a writer, then write. They're gonna talk shit if I don't spell shit right. If I don't add commas. If I don't use contractions. F that. Don't let them niggas dim your light. Because you're just golden. You're the one telling the story that's unfolding. And whether they admit it or not, their minds get trapped in words spoken. So use your title as your token. You said witness your soliloquy as words do your will. You use pain and pleasure to let words spill. So if they spit out your sadness, that's technically ignorant as hell. Don't use the spell check when you write this. This is your first and your last time addressing it. You've been letting people get away with for mediocre. Sorry, I'm a little nervous. You've been letting people get away with mediocre for way too long. Ha, but you're a writer that spells things wrong. Sometimes that's really bad. I mean, it's not a crime. You understood my plot because I can make the point sublime. It's my time to shine. Take away my pen and I can't decipher my mind. Don't let them stifle your creativity with political correctness. I tell tall tales that tap dance on my tongue and 2 steps on my cheek muscles until I spilled the beans. I started putting the words on paper since I didn't know what they mean or meant. I'm sorry for that grammar error. Like Lo said, I'm sorry for that grammar error. However, can you create stories like me? Like Lo said, I'm sorry for that grammar error. However, can you create stories like me? And that's the error. I mean, some will come. I won't need to triple check forever. Everything you see is edited. I should get a standing ovation for being the realest of them all, giving you my real emotions, words that are raw. TV is edited, yet y'all glorify the show, but laugh at a misspelled word in a masterpiece. My God, what a joke. TV isn't it, though. Can I take this off? Sorry. TV isn't it, though. Movies, screenplays, books, YouTube, and all the blogs you read are edited. These words were heaven sent, and that's the difference between a prodigy and a pretender. Please point out someone who gets it right all the time. Never uses spell check, autocorrect, or dictionary.com. To tell the truth, I am not a former writer. Believe that if you want to, all real writers are liars. I mean, this was implied when you clicked the blog. How do you think my name hatched? That's a catch. When said out loud, they're amazing, but when it's read, it's chicken scratch. That was it. Okay, and this is my last one. This is called An Introduction to My Audience. It was my first poem on my blog. And I just kind of want you to pay attention to the alliteration in the poem. Let's see if you guys catch it. Okay? So what inspired this poem was a quote that said, if you're a writer, then write. I saw this quote on another blog and it upset me, urged me and went to respond and ushered in my anger. How dare a person write something like this? A disclaimer. This is not meant to offend, but writing is a craft. Now, don't confuse my confession. I am not claiming that one shouldn't be a connoisseur of words. I am simply stating that just because it was written does not make the person who wrote it a writer. Secondly, why say it like that? Do you know what writers endure? Writers write a lot. Publishing, well, that's a different story. So consider this my first publication to you, and I am pronouncing power over all words spoken here, my dear. Writers do write. Hence why the quote in the beginning, I thought it wise to respond. If I proclaim that I am a writer, is it not so? Yet the proof is in pudding, and even though I like Jell-O, I need some writing samples. However, I realize that when I go into probe people's brains, my words tribute their pupils. So now that you have open eyes, I promise you I am a writer. Did you read that in a convincing tone? Do you believe that I am a lyrical wordsmith, that I can bend words to my whim and make them do my bidding as if I birthed the alphabet and gave letters life? I had already started a blog, and then I deleted it. I tried again, then I deleted it. Reasons why? Delectable ideas swirl around in my mind, slowly begin to intertwine with why those ideas won't work. When I shake the sense that my pages aren't making a big enough statement, I feel spineless. Writing is a sport for me, a challenge, a tingle with the words, yet I lead this divine dance. This is low-key a declaration of my dedication to deliver my doubts. Procrastination intervenes and always lingers in lounges for too long, leaving a lasting impression on my writing's worth. Am I a writer? I could blame it on the fact that when I was born, the stars aligned and allowed my sign to be Gemini. We often like to leave things unfinished. My feelings nowadays are so retractable. I'm so detached and blue. Life has stained me, so I come to pour my pain to a page, to push pen to paper, pleading with my pencil to pull me through. The world tells me that the ball is in my court. I'm going to try not to bail. Here's my ballpoint pen. I'll have a fountain one if you use it. Get a feather, a leaf. I'll dip it in the ink and list the lies, lust, and loathing. I shall call this poem Red Ink Galore. I bleed. My signature is engrossed and embedded all throughout this poem. I am a writer, one that hides, because I don't use words to soothe. I use words to innate, illustrate, and create. My imagination is invested. Writers do write, so come one, come all, and witness my soliloquy as words do my will.
Obadiah, what are you doing tomorrow night between 7 and 10 p.m.? Would you like to win some money? Are there any poets in here or writers that would like to win some money tomorrow night? Who needs $75 right now? Who needs $50 right now? 25. Get you a snack on the food truck. What else can it get you? $25? We'll get you, that catfish though was $9. I don't know, it'll get you one plate of catfish. And what else? A soda. And that's it. That's about it. A MARTA pass, y'all use MARTA? No, y'all got cars? How much is tuition here? 40,000, 30,000? Y'all got cars, right? Cars and rims? Isn't that what y'all got? No? Oh, okay. But tomorrow night, I am hosting a poetry slam, and Dr. Bess, y'all give it up for Dr. Bess over here, is giving away cold cash for the top 3 poets. Where is the poetry slam going to be? It's going to be in 102 in Carl. So tomorrow night, what happened? And Greg, we have a DJ tomorrow night, DJ Greg. So you can win $75 for first place, $50 second place, and $25 for third place. It's only going to be 2 or 3 rounds. It's going to be an actual poetry slam with judges. So if you want to be a judge, just come on out. Of course, it's absolutely free for everybody. Tell everybody on and off campus to come. We want to pick judges from the audience. So think about if you want to be a judge. You get to judge the poets from 0 being the worst ever in life to 10 being the best. And then you decide who gets to go home with the money. So if you want to show up tomorrow and win, show up at 7 o'clock to sign up. We're going to take the first 10, maybe 12 poets, see how many we get, and then we're going to start right at 7:30. If y'all feel that, y'all say, all right. Say, all right. All right, so our next person, come on up, Beautiful. Beautiful was in my poetry class, and then for some reason, she's not, because, I don't know, the politics of university can be interesting sometimes, but her writing is awesome, and I'm glad to have her. I was glad to have her in my class for the couple weeks that she was in there, and hopefully she can come back next year. Where the freshmen at? We got freshmen in here? Freshmen? Oh, that's so cute. Y'all were just in high school. When? Was it like 6 months ago? That's awesome. Sophomores, where y'all at? Sophomores? Okay, that's awesome. Juniors? Almost out, making decisions on your life. Seniors, where you at, seniors? Uh-oh, about to have to pay your own bills. You already paying your own bills? What bills y'all got besides Metro? What rent? Don't y'all live on campus? No, but we don't live on campus. Who don't live on, who does not live on campus? Raise your hand. Oh yeah, you should have stayed on campus till you graduated. That's funny. Okay. All right. So I think I introduced myself, but my name is Queen Sheba. You can follow me on Instagram. My Instagram is The Queen Sheba. I don't do anything crazy on my Instagram. It's either poetry or running, either one of them. And I do lots of poetry events in the city. So if you happen to stay in Atlanta during the summer or you come back next year, then we're always doing some. There's a poetry festival coming up at the end of this month. There's always poetry going on in Atlanta that you can get involved in. Right now, I want you to give it up for my former students, hopefully my student again next year. Put your hands together for Beautiful. Dr. Bess is giving away door prizes today, so don't leave.
Hello, my name's Beautiful. I'm a freshman, and I actually couldn't be in her class because they said the class was too high of a level for me. So I had to wait until I finished all my English classes.
That's ridiculous. That's the policy. The policy is ridiculous.
So this first poem I have, it's called Dear Black Men. It's actually in the CAU review, in case you guys have heard of it and you saw it out. Thank you, thank you. I wrote it in response to another guy's poem because his poem was just really ignorant, and so I responded to him. That was all. Hey there, big boy, look what you're doing. Hey there, big boy, look what you're doing. Dear black men, thank you for your appreciation, but the whole female nation didn't ask for your approval. I'll give you my smile when I get my break. Calling at me from across the street isn't sexy. It makes my stomach ache. Keep your comments until they're invited. Always the same damn thing with the same damn words like you're a part of Black Men United. Don't get my target and twist it. All assholes are the same, except they come in different shades. When we were young, they told us confidence is key. Dear all men, your overconfidence disgusts me. Hey there, big boy, look what you're doing. Hey there, big boy, look what you're doing. Trying to smash these holes, be a rapist for your bros, smash the wrong hole, cut it off second hole. Apologies. A bit too graphic. I'm not really like that. I'm just acting, is what he used to tell me. Your second personality, but who's the one I'm dating? Hey there, big boy, look what you're doing. Hey there, big boy, look what you're doing. You're probably sitting there thinking, what about you? I know you're waiting through because you hoes do it too, but not as much as you, these hoes saying reply. And in this argument I've started, my bad, guys. I just wanted to share an experience of mine, so thank you for your time. My next poem, no one has seen it at all because I wrote it at 1:30 in the morning. So you guys are the second person to see it besides my boyfriend. So you're the second people to see it. You wouldn't know hard if it broke your walls and your army full of guards have been taken down. You wouldn't know if it were a hit to the heart and your smile turns into a frown. And never for a moment at night does that frown go away as you lie awake wondering what he's been doing all day. You try and ask, but his answers are vague, and that ends the conversation, so sit in silence, you'll stay. Hard is realizing that the one person you loved is a pervert. Hard is knowing that the second person you loved hates gays and therefore hates you. Hard is knowing that the third person you love doesn't know if he loves you and won't commit to you, but says he'll be there for you as he fucks you over and over again. And you just don't know what to do. Hard is wanting to seek help and not wanting to protect him. Hard is believing that he's good, with good intentions and good for you. Hard is believing you'll ever say I do because it seems that man you're looking for isn't looking for you. Hard is knowing deep down he found her thinking that she was you. Or he knew her all along and they were just playing a big-ass mind game with you. Hard is knowing that he loves her too.
Man, y'all angry. Okay. All right, so tomorrow for the 49th annual Writers Workshop here in Haven Warren, the first session is at 10 a.m. Who's going to be up early? 10 a.m. tomorrow. Thank you. Come on through. Come through. Yes, come through. 10 a.m. is the first workshop, and that is with Janelle Walden. Who needs an agent in the age of social media? You do. I will definitely be here for that because if you don't think you need an agent or a book agent or a manager and you're trying to get into that entertainment or writing life, you definitely need to come to that workshop at 10 a.m. And then at 11 a.m., welcome and introduction with Monica Long, Leonard Pitts, Keeping It Real, Our Stories True, the inspiration for The Last Thing You Surrender. And then at 1 p.m., session number 3, welcome and introduction. And then Ebony Perro, Daniel Black, The Power in Telling Stories. That's really going to be awesome. And then tomorrow night, like I said, from 7 to 10, it's going to be the Poetry Slam. So we have until 3 o'clock in here today. So everybody else that comes up, let's just do one poem or song so that everybody can get in. If we have time, then we'll circle back. So I'd like to call up Amaya Crockram to sing a song. Where's Amaya at? Come on, Amaya.
Hey everybody, how y'all doing today? So my professor, I call her Auntie Tam Tam, asked me to sing. So this is just a song, I guess. It's called Black Butterfly. Morning light, silken dreams, take flight as the darkness gives way to the dawn. You survive, now your moment has arrived. Now your dream has finally been born. what the struggle brings. Black butterfly, set the skies on fire, rise up even higher, so the ages with the tides can catch your wings. While you slept, the promise was unkept, but your faith wasn't sure as the sky. Now you're free, and the world has come to see just how proud and beautiful you are. Black butterfly, sail across the water. Tell your sons and daughters what the struggle brings. Black butterfly, set the skies on fire. Rise up even higher, so the ages with the tides can catch your wings. Thank you.
That was awesome. Somebody say awesome. That was awesome. Erica, do you want to come up here and do your poem? Erica is in my poetry class, my poetry workshop class. Y'all put your hands together for Erica. Y'all could do better than that.
Hey y'all, my name is Erica Taylor. Be nice, cause I'm not a poet, but Queen Sheba been helping me out. So this is my iambic pentameter about love. So it's this boy, yeah, I see him around. Probably play girls like toys, but I stay down. Don't feel like the ties, I'm cool with goodbyes. Ain't giving no tries, he seem like he lie. I'm cool with the vibes, no need for no bae. But he's so cute, yeah, I know that's what they say. And after we chill, I put him on mute. He kinda a nerd, look good in the suit. I guess he my type, feelings take flight, but no time for games, I got dreams in sight. The type to be in likes, I hate all that. Entertain any girl, he can get it. Always say I'm a double cause he plays, but always text back when he say let's blaze. I can only text him when I get bored, because catching feelings I can't afford. Thank you.
Y'all be playing too many games on campus. Do y'all like somebody? Just say you like somebody. Be like, I like you, boo. No, you can't do that? You do that? Oh, are you Alicia? Oh, my number, 404-697-9734. 404-697-9734. So you mean to tell me if you saw somebody on the quad that y'all thought was cute, you just gonna let them walk by? What? That could be your future boo. It could be somebody else's boo, but you don't know it until you ask and say, hey, how you doing? My name is Shaquita, and I was wondering if you had a boo already. No, I ain't got no boo. Oh, well, maybe we could be summer boos. No, it don't work like that? Oh, a summer boo. Just like, for like 90 days, and then you got to get back to school. That's it. Okay, all right. I mean, I don't know. Maybe you just wanted some company to hang out with at the beach or something. Who goes home for the summer? Who going home for the summer? Everybody going home? Y'all don't stay and hang out in Atlanta? Atlanta is amazing in the summertime. Free festivals, free concerts, the park, the water, everything. You can stay at my house. You can stay at my house. Just you, though, not like everybody. Okay. All right. I'm just saying, shoot your shot. Alicia, where you at? You text me, Alicia. Come on up here. Alicia says she wanted to share her spoken word. I don't know her. You don't know her. Let's give her some love. Y'all can do better than that for Alicia.
Just want to make a quick correction. My name is pronounced Alicia. It's okay. Common mistake, Alicia. Something about me that you guys should know. I run distance runner on CAU track team. I'm a sophomore, English major, and I love to write. So this poem that I'm gonna read to you is kind of just something that just arose out of me, like out of thought and how I really be feeling sometimes. So it's called Thoughts of a Young Black Woman. I am emotionally unavailable. I'm sorry to say, but I will never love you. It would be nice for us to be together. Deep down inside, I feel cold, alone, and scared. Am I a miserable person? Nah, I'm strong, but maybe too good, maybe too strong for my own good. I want love, but I lack faith in love because I tend to lay with strays. I continue to date as a sign, but I'm not broken, but deep down inside, I fear man, therefore I fear love. I am blinded, I am alone in a jungle. I am a predator protecting where I stand. Masculine energy is my shield from harm. Like a force field with weak points, sometimes I get cut, but never will I die. Sleeping is my heaven because in my mind, I'm in prison, maybe on a daily basis with fear, guilt, sadness, happiness, anger, joy, grit, alone, but feeling unaccomplished. Time is math, and I've yet to master it. Forgive me for my emotions. I just need sleep. That's the end.
That's awesome. Thank you, Alicia. I apologize for mispronouncing your name. That's awesome. You're on the track team for Clark? Oh, that's great. How many miles a week do y'all run as a team for distance running? 100? 50? 15 miles a week? That's awesome. I mean, I don't know, 100, a lot. Is that a lot? Some people run 100 miles if they're training for a marathon. That's a lot. Anybody else on the track team? Basketball team? Soccer team? Softball team? What do y'all do for fun? Sleep? Who says sleep for fun? Hilarious. Y'all are so funny. Okay, Paige, come on up here, Paige. Paige is gonna come up here. Paige is an incredible visual artist, and she's in both of my fiction and my poetry class, so I'm excited to hear what she's gonna read. Y'all put your hands together for Paige Oliver. Y'all could do better than that.
Tad short. Professor Rubin, you see me? just wanted to let you know I'm here. All right, I'm not gonna tell you what this is about. I think y'all will figure it out. Unexpectedly rhymed. Like fire, hellfire. As if I care that an old building is up in flames, no one said anything about our holy temples and spaces ransacked and pillaged by privileged faces. Like fire, hellfire, only tragic and anticlimactic, do I really care about a building that was a symbol to subjecting the innocents, justifying their cruelty archaically? Like fire, hell's fire, open Dante's Inferno, let the thing blaze. No, I'll be on my way, those priceless pieces are overdue, but mine's coming through. It's old, frail, and damaging. It's an old hunchback Disney's tale to me, onto my story.
Okay, I see a couple other students from my fiction class here. So I don't know if you're hanging out, watching, or if you want this to be part of your grade, if you want to come up here and make this part of your presentation, then make sure to text me. I don't know if you're just hanging out or wanted to get up here. So text me if you want to get up here. For right now, we have Fatima Mitchell. Where you at, Fatima Mitchell? Come on, Fatima. Thank you for the new followers on Instagram. Appreciate it. Get my likes up. We're gonna have to take a selfie before we leave, right? As Dr. Bess is giving away her door prizes, we're gonna take a big group selfie. I'm gonna post it on my Instagram page. Yes. Inches. Okay. Fatima, what you gonna do? A poem? Hell yeah.
Yeah, you might have to.
How's that?
Yeah, it's good.
Y'all put your hands together for Fatima.
I'm
sorry, I'm little. Okay, so this is it's a little long, but hopefully y'all like it. All right. It's called Finally. What's right is right, what's wrong is wrong. Isn't that what you always taught me? Not with your own actions, but with your own words, only leaving the imprints of your truths that are left unheard. You speak of her faults, his faults, my faults, but what about yours? Not the ones you own up to at your own convenience. No, trust me, I know there's more. I'm talking about the real deep faults, the ones you refuse to see, the faults you project through hidden emotions, drinking bottles, and inflicting pain upon me. Do you ever stop to think about that, about how you make me feel, about why it is that I question your love for me is real? I mean, I know you're my mother, but you're supposed to love me, right? Then why does your soul feel so disconnected from yours? I continue to wonder why I even put up a fight. She's your mother. She only wants what's best for you. Don't be so hard on her. She's a victim of her own childhood. Yep, that's what they say. So why do I continue to let your pain affect me in the worst way? The end result is that I'll never win, and to be honest, I never could. You always seem to be satisfied with my defeat and your victory, just like I knew you would. But what's the prize? To watch your inner self crumble while you take me down with you. Sometimes you fail to realize, yes, I'm young, but I have hidden emotions too. Maybe you do realize it. Is that why you use my faults against me? To deflect from your own wrongs, just to see your own subconscious to be set free. See, your actions and words have taught me to be resentful, that only the truth spoken about you and wrongs equal being disrespectful. Why does it work like that? Why is it okay? Why is it one-sided? Why do you completely ignore every word that I say? It's as if you don't hear me or try to understand. Then you wonder why I lean on everyone else when all I needed from you was a motherly helping hand. Control is key for you. I have the things you didn't. You try to rob me of those things because you can, and I have to deal with it. You have no control. You had no control when you were younger, so you try to control me. And I'm just supposed to take it. So who sets my subconscious free? You hate to see me with more than what you had. You hate that I could possibly be more knowledgeable in things you excel in. Sometimes it just feels like you hate to see me win. You hate that my love connects with another female. You say God says my soul will be damned to hell. My love is an abomination. But do you ever question the sins that you constantly commit that could put you in the same situation? But I dare not speak about your wrongs because I'm a child and I have a place. But you did not stay in your place as a mother when you yelled the words ungrateful bitch to my face. I haven't heard an apology yet. You said, that's the way I feel. But am I your daughter? Do you even acknowledge me? I guess I'll never know. This is the behaviors that you have made okay. Despite me being a good child who does the best they can and all they should, I still somehow get treated this way. This is why I have become accustomed to really. It's quite sad to see, but I can't complain too much because there's so many others who has it worse than me. The side I speak of is a side of you no one else gets to see. Your emotional, verbal, and sometimes borderline physical abuse that you have continued to inflict upon me. You tell me, suck it up. That's the way life will treat you. You'll be okay. But life doesn't raise me, you do, and you're making the choice to raise me your way. That's the way it's always been. This is what has left me with so many scars. But my days have been freed from your control and definitely are not that far. Maybe I'll come around, maybe I'll heal, but nothing can undo what you have done to me. Replace the motherly love I needed from you all these years, the love that has never been revealed. I continue to wonder why you treat me the way you do. I may never know the answer, but I just pray you see the damage you've done to both me and you.
Oh my goodness, that was awesome. That was incredible. Turn to somebody, give somebody a high five. Say, that was incredible. That was amazing. That really was amazing. So, I invited my friend to come and do a poem. She's getting her PhD here at Clark, and I'm very inspired by her. And she's an incredible poet, writer, and spoken word artist. She moved from Houston, Texas to come up here to Atlanta to come to CAU. And her name is Pace. You can follow her on Instagram at Pace Poetry. She's been my friend for about 5 years. I look up to her. She's also an incredible teacher. She has taught at a couple universities before she came to get her PhD. She's also super down to earth and cool and fun, and that is her real hair. Y'all put your hands together for Pace. Put your hands together for Pace. I didn't know that was her real hair until like a year ago. She was like, bitch, where's my goddamn hair? Does that look like her real hair? It does. I was wrong. I was a bad friend. Y'all put your hands together for Pace.
All right, what's going on? Hey. Yeah, let's see.
They up.
I don't know,
They
cause
up.
I'm a poet and we feed off of energy. So when I say what's up, I need some more energy from you. What's up? CAU. Thank you. Is it? Can we cuss?
Yes, we've been cussing.
Okay, let me show. Oh my gosh. No, do y'all really want to know me though?
Yes.
Do y'all know? I'm serious. Do y'all really want to know me? Cause I want y'all to get to, okay. Cause see, I done dealt with a lot of people and they just like to say that I'm just crazy. You know, ladies, I don't know when you mess with your dude and everything. And you know, you like, you know, to check his phone. You know, or you call and we don't answer the first time, you know, because we care. We just try to keep calling until he answers, you know what I'm saying? But they don't be understanding, like, you know, they made us that way, but they want to call us crazy. So I wrote this poem to let him know that I'm not crazy. See, I'm really, truly, wholeheartedly admitting that I'm just... See, some may classify me as crazy, but see, crazy don't recognize crazy. And see, I'm not in denial. I'm owning up to who I am, and I'm just up in the head. And I feel sorry for you because you have no clue of what you gotten yourself into, or shall I say, who you gotten yourself into. And as much as I would love to blame it all on my past and give you this little sob story claiming victim to my memories, and as good as that would sound, I'm not even about to play you, even though you look like I could. But I've been putting on for so long, I've just been waiting to meet someone that I can just break down to and unveil my unknown, that I'm just up in the head. And I know you're probably wondering what the hell I mean, so let me give you brief descriptive details. See, I'm that chick who'll make up all these fallacies in my mind, create your lies that I convince myself that you told me, then I, in my mind, catch you in a lie that I made up that you made up to cover up all the little imaginary friends that you seem to forgotten to get rid of. See, I play more than pretend in my up mind. I visualize strategically. You inside of her, she's inside of me, because she's part of my fallacy. And whenever I try to emulate what I made up y'all did, and I don't receive the same groans and moans and, oh, shit, I take a trip back in my mind because obviously I wasn't taking good enough notes from this bitch. I mean your imaginary friend. And let me get myself together. I hate being ignored, so when I text you, you better reply in less than a second. When I call you, that phone better not ring more than 3 times out of common courtesy, no phone etiquette. See, you don't want me to be ignored because then I get bored. No, then I feel scorned. And within those same 5 minutes that you finally decided to reply back, I'm already knocking at your door, hoping to enact everything I envision driving. They're coming through, slashing up your place, finding your imaginary friend. No, that same that makes you say, oh, shit. Every time she spits and sits, I gloat as I see myself playing bungalows with her face and then cutting the cords to your strings as you beg me, baby, please, it's not what you see, it's not what you think. Then we kiss and make up. See, that's the fucked up kind of love that I created my mind because I don't know what happy love looks like. So this whole new thing of me being so happy with you is something that I just can't seem to get used to. See, I'm searching back all those tears I cried all those years, thinking about how this smile has been plastered on my face for a while. No, this just can't be real. No, you're not really into me. No, you can't be in love with me. I'm anxiously waiting for the truth to slip through and I get the real you because it's you. Just can't be the real you. You're not about to make me believe that fairy tales do come true. And I finally received my Prince Charming after kissing all of these frogs for so long. Nah, bruh. I'm not about to be your fool. So I'm going to stick to my dramatic Shakespearean stories, utilize my creative writing degree, and write the end that'll soon be you and me because that's always been my reality. I can't handle being out of my comfort zone, so I picture myself alone as I lie next to you every night, and I know it's a fucked up thing to do to anticipate the end that'll soon be me and you, but the way these stories I be making up are set up, I'm just in the head. Thank you.
That is bananas. Who be doing that? Who be texting your boo over and over and over? Put up your church finger. Put up your church finger. Be like, hey, but I was just, pretending to care about this. How many guys are on campus? It only like, what, 37? I mean, that was what's up. Okay, Jasia. Is it Jasia Gibson? Jasia Gibson, put your hands together for Jasia Gibson. Don't forget to come back here, right here, tomorrow morning at 10 a.m. to find out if you need an agent or not. Fiction people, I'm still looking at you in here, so text me if you're trying to perform. Yeah. All right, Jasia. Y'all put your hands together for Jasia. We got a couple more people. We got time until 3 o'clock class starts, so if you want to get up here and share something, don't forget the Poetry Slam is tomorrow night. Even if you perform today, you can win money tomorrow. How much is first prize? $75, second prize is $50, third prize is $25, but we still have door prizes to give away. I'm about to go down there and get them and see what Dr. Best has to give away. Y'all put your hands together for Jasia.
Hi, everyone. I'm a senior English major, about to graduate. Thank you. I've only spit on the mic maybe 3 or 4 times, so this is probably like my 5th time spitting. And I'm just gonna do a little poem for you guys. It's titled Just Jasia. Here we go. The last Friday, I took a shallow breath and dug deep. I am the one looking in the mirror, reflecting greatness. I am the one looking in the mirror, preaching power. I am the one looking in the mirror, deciding my fate. I am the one looking in the mirror. Outside that mirror, I see I am confident and I am sexy. I am loving and I am daring. I am healing and I am deserving of unconditional love. I am observant and withstanding. I am creative and a work of art. I am precious and hella impatient. I am tough and I am shy, with a hint of bad girl on the side. I am curious, I am surviving, I am flexible, and I am complex. I am forever flowing like a current within the sea. I am not alone, and I will never be alone because I have her who resides in me. She was once nice to others, but never kind to herself. She did not know how to bathe in the moonlight of her greatest feats. She did not know how to triumph over the sunlight of her deepest flaws. She spent 2 years wallowing in tears because she was lost. She had poison running from her lips that could easily kill a soul. Now she is learning the importance of walking and does not crave to run away from her past anymore. She learns to love me and has beautified me, glorified a room in her heart only for me. She pushes me to carry great power. She demands I build upon myself and evolve. She never lets me down because she won't let me drop my heart. She shields me from bullets and arrows that could pierce my soul. She confides her grief in me and cries with a heart heavier than gold, sparkling like stars, shimmering like trickling water, explosive like a supernova, firm like a rooted soul within a tree. She is my strength, my willpower, and she is me.
Y'all say bye. Okay. Let's see. Vivica Mosley? Come on, Vivica. Fall semester, I'm teaching another creative writing class, and in my classroom it's safe. You can talk about whatever you want to talk about. It's LGBTQIAWXYZ friendly. I mean, we add so many letters to that, you know. But so sign up for my class if you need writing in your major or your minor. And my class is called My Story as Not Seen on Instagram. It's already listed. And it may possibly be a memoir class, or it may just be a creative writing short story class. So make sure you tell a friend and sign up for my class. Here you go.
Hello, everyone. My name is Vivica Mosley, and I'm a freshman. Yay! And this poem is going to be about Black women. It's kind of short, though. Dark brown eyes, full lips, cocoa skin, wide hips, small waist, everyone wants a little taste. The way her body receives the sun, soaked in melanin, drenched in soul. But what do you see when you look at her? You see an angry, loud Black woman. I see a woman who refuses to be misused. A woman who's strong and independent, but yet so disrespected, torn down, degraded, made to feel worthless, but she knows her worth. DNA made of Black gold, her sun-kissed beauty never grows old. The sway of her hips, the touch of her lips, and the magic between her thighs hypnotize.
Okay, I don't think anybody else texted me, unless, would you like to go? Okay, what's your name? Ice, Ice, Ice. Come on, y'all put your hands together for Ice. Y'all can do better than that, y'all can do better than that. Who else wanted to go? You wanna go? Okay. All right, we're gonna say 10 minutes, because I wanna make sure everybody gets to class on time. We got 10 minutes, fiction people sitting in here. I see you. And we have 2 giveaways. I like your grills. What y'all listening to? Y'all talking to each other in the head? What are y'all saying about us? You go to school here? Yeah, you got a class? Okay, that's what's up. Okay. You got a boo on campus? Oh, okay. You got good credit though? You sure? Don't mess up your credit in college. Don't put nothing in your mama name. Okay, all right, that's what's up. This is your work study job? Oh, okay. What's your name? What is your Junior? Y'all know Junior? Y'all do know Junior? You on Snapchat? Oh, you rap? You should rap then, Junior. What up? Oh, you weren't even ready. You weren't even ready. Oh, okay, all right. Don't be talking about us in y'all headphones and shit. All right. Y'all put your hands together for Ice.
Hey, you guys, I'm Ice. I'm from Compton, California. I'm a public relations major. All right, so I don't really have a name for this poem. We gonna call it I Bend, Don't Break. I bend, don't break. I remain rooted in the soil of my mothers before me, taking in the blessings and lessons they have endured, blossoming into the woman that they dream to be. I bend, don't break. Like my father taught me, I stand tall, defying all the laws that say I can't, to always stay strong so no matter what life throws at me, it can't take away my soul. I bend, don't break, and as I continue to be the woman I am meant to be, I inspire a nation with my fruits of knowledge and wisdom that I bear. I share kindness and love with those who want a piece of me. Because of this, I plant a seed of confidence in everyone I meet. I will never die, I multiply.
Hey! Okay, Candace, I got you. Where you at? Candace Fox. Come on, Candace. I think Candace is the last one, and then we're going to give away these 2 door prizes. All right, come on, Candace. I love your hair. You're welcome. It's real.
How is everyone? My name is Candace Folks, and I'm a senior English major from Decatur, Georgia. All right, so My poem is called If You Don't Want 'Em, Wear Rubbers. Okay. All right. The crying, the screaming, the slamming into doors, the pinching, the flinching, the threats till 5 in the morning, the sorrow, the madness, the anguish of the neighbors, the ignoring, the gossip, the fear to disrupt the behavior of the parents who live down below, cursed because they don't know how to raise a child and show it love. Instead, they scream up above to their child, to the skies, asking God, God, why did you give me this child I clearly don't want? This child who antagonizes me and taunts my authority as a mother, my patience as a lover, my happiness as a human. God, I wish I had been choosing to rubber or not to rubber. That would have been my only question, because now I'm stuck with a child that's always crying and always begging. And that's my first one. Let me just hit the second one real quick. I know we gotta go. We can't. You just, really?
We said one.
Okay.
You who want to hear it?
Thank you. It's real quick, okay?
We got you.
Where we found LOVE at. He loves my crazy ass. The chemical release of my oxytocin, or the love hormone as we call it, gravitates him into my pool. He's digging my smell. It's something similar to my mother's fragrance, the way she weaved my father into her web, surviving their generation together, and the only rebuttals he ever beckoned were in silence. It's something about us women, us black women. Our fragrance we emit draws them in close, like the bud of a flower before it blooms. Merci beaucoup. Thank you very much. À tout à l'heure.
Okay, again, I appreciate y'all. Who? You gon' come on, Junior. We gotta give away these 2 door prizes. All right, first door prize I'm gonna give away. You have to have a car for this one. Or know somebody with a car. How about that? This is a car accessory. So, let's see. What is the first session tomorrow here at 10 o'clock? What's it about? Who said agent? Who said agent? Agent, come on. If you said agent, come on up here. It's about having an agent, getting an agent. If you think you need an agent in the age of social media. Yes, it's about being an agent. Look at you, got the second bag. Come on, gentlemen. We gotta roll it out. But come to the Poetry Slam tomorrow. Okay, good. This has 2 gifts in here, 3 gifts in here. Okay, what's the name of my class next semester? What you say right here? Yes, absolutely. Come on up here and get this. It's got 3 gifts in here, so if you want to share, you can share. All right, JR is gonna do his thing. And don't forget, tomorrow, 10 o'clock in here, if you need an agent, then an 11 o'clock session, and then there's one at 1 o'clock right after lunch, and then the Poetry Slam is at 7, cash prizes.
Word. This song right here, I'm gonna just spit it a cappella with 1 verse real quick. It's a song I wrote recently. It like respects women and stuff. So, so like that's why I'm gonna spit this for y'all. I ain't got the beat, so bear with me. The first 4 bars is kind of slow. All right. I knew not, girl, when I seen you. Tired of not of me wifing you. Sad face stops cause I'm liking you. Love like Watts, it was lightning through. Trust issues, I was fighting you. No tissues, you were crying you. You broke down, I put life in you. My heart, soul, ever life in you. I was a player that hell got an enemy. Mobbing with me and I'm loving the synergy. It's to the point where we got the same energy. It's to the point where we got the same enemies. Hold up, not a smoker, but you hit it when I roll up. I ain't pimping, but I'm lipping when I scroll up. Gotta check you, my lady, I'ma show love. No kids, no baby in the scroller, scary, excited, I think that I need you. When we make love, I pull out getting weaker. Body be banging, it hit like a speaker. I be your Kevin Gates, you be my drinker. Giving me knowledge like you was a teacher. Giving you money like you was a preacher. I be the rapper and you be the sneaker. I eat the verses and you be the feature. Teamwork I like when you captain. Keep it 100, babe, you never capping. You be like hit 'em whenever I'm scrapping. You be like get 'em whenever I'm snapping. You couldn't get me to let go your hand. She couldn't get me if she had a plan. He couldn't get you with all of his bands. You are my woman and I am your man.
All right, everybody come right here. We're going to take a selfie. We're going to take a selfie real quick. We're going to take a selfie. Come to the front. Come to the front real quick.
Oh, yeah, one last thing. Instagram. JRBE snapping, no G. JRBE snapping, no G. Appreciate y'all. Word.